It is 6:01. Good morning. I'm Jonathan Schaefer from the Superbook.com sports desk. The Titans fired general manager Jon Robinson yesterday. The dismissal occurred 2 days after the Titans were routed by the Eagles 35-10 in that game. Former Titans receiver A.J. Brown scored 2 touchdowns. In her statement, Titans controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk said, "I believe there is more to be done and higher aspirations to be met." The Titans currently lead the AFC South with a 7-5 record, and they've won back-to-back division titles. Robinson and head coach Mike Vrabel signed contract extensions in February. Robinson had a winning record in all 6+ of his seasons in charge, became the second winningest general manager in franchise history. Ryan Cowden, the team's vice president of player personnel, will oversee player personnel for the rest of the season. NBA coming up tonight. Oklahoma City at Memphis, 7 o'clock. The tip for that. Roy Foundation Repair and Waterproofing needs. Visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Wednesday edition off and running on our own Kayla and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors on 104.5 The Zone, where we got done at Nissan Stadium yesterday and the Nashville sporting world was turned on its head. Jon Robinson fired by the Tennessee Titans. Our reaction and next steps on a full day of reaction here on 104.5 The Zone. With 11-year NFL veteran Ramon Foster, that's Kayla Anderson. Behind the glass, Jonathan Schaefer. We call him the best producer in the world, making the show happen.
The best producer in the world!
615-737-1045, the number as we take your reaction and give you ours as well to the news of the day. Yesterday, Jon Robinson let go as the Tennessee Titans general manager. Good morning.
Ooh.
For us. For us, Will. Good morning, Will.
Yeah.
Good morning, Kayla.
This
Safe?
has been a morning.
Yes, it has.
Or last 24 hours, I should say.
We went from giving gifts to watching people get their gifts taken away from them. Whew. Was not expecting this.
It was a shocking development yesterday. And it is an interesting vibe you have around this team now that includes a playoff run, an AFC South, a championship potentially again, and a massive football game on Sunday in Nissan Stadium. But now you begin to build for what is next for this team. And it is going to be very interesting to watch this search play out over the coming months and the coming weeks after this season ends. But I want to get your guys' initial reaction yesterday when you heard the news about Jon Robinson being let go.
My initial one, I immediately sent y'all a text. Wow. Whoa, J-Rob fired. I'm thinking to myself, absolutely not. It's surprising on a Tuesday. Yeah, like how you get fired on your day off. Like it's Tuesday, players' day off in the NFL for the most part. And I'm like, he really got fired on his day off, y'all. He really did. And then after that, I'm like, why? Like I can understand the why after the initial onset of thought, but just number 1 seed last year. You lost. It's football. But then I'm thinking to myself, you are in position to be the AFC South winner. You're going to make the playoffs. And boom, nobody's safe.
No.
Miss Amy Adams Strunk is walking around with the Suge Knight red coat on right now. She's just like anybody can get it at this point.
She is the boss lady.
Like, golly, yeah, she put it in perspective yesterday.
The 1 hour I was off social media in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I get out of an appointment, and I got texts from you. I got texts from my husband. I got tweet notifications, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Now, I was shocked with the timing of everything. Am I shocked that Jon Robinson and the Titans parted ways? Not really.
That wasn't a thought.
I've talked about the two's relationship potentially not being on the same page for a while now. I brought it up in the show.
You did.
I think earlier in the week or last week.
You did.
But at this time, with them making the playoffs probably, with them, I know, have been dealing with adversity, but that's what the Titans do. That's what this team has done for years now. And so the timing for me was completely off. So, yeah, I was shocked.
Yeah.
615-737-1045 is the number this morning as we take your reaction to Jon Robinson's firing as the GM of the Titans. My initial reaction, Amy Adams-Strunk is not satisfied with simply winning the AFC South.
Yeah.
No.
Amy Adams-Strunk wants this organization to go from good to great. And I saw a lot of talk yesterday on the Buck Rising show when this broke, just other places that I disagree with, insinuating that Jon Robinson couldn't sustain a championship-level roster here in Nashville. No, the issue is he sustained a good roster that was never great. Outside of a run in 2019 that was special, that was, quite frankly, unsustainable in January and February like you really wanted it to be. So Jon Robinson deserves a ton of credit, and we will have time to kind of do the retrospective and look back at what worked and what didn't work for him in coordination with why he was let go by the Titans. But Jon Robinson deserves a ton of credit for bringing this franchise back to relevance and building the foundation. He wasn't able to build enough on that foundation to take it to the next level and win a championship. That's ultimately why today it's Mike Vrabel, it's Ryan Cowden, it's everybody else in that building and not him who continues to build on this thing to try to take the Titans to go from good to great.
I also think it's the fact that he couldn't sustain a roster or manage a roster, whether it be money or players that kept you in it above line, too. That was one of the biggest things to me is the guys you brought in, the guys you decided to keep, the guys that you let go also played a part into that also. Like if there's one player that goes out for this team, it fractured it almost a big part of whether it be the play, whether it be the expectations or anything. Like looking at the left tackle position right now, and I know there's not a bunch of guys walking the streets to just replace Taylor for whatever you think of him, right? But you also say to yourself, we're just in survival mode with the guys that we have. And then you look at the guys that are in positions, whether it was supposed to be Radunz taking over the spot at right tackle or left guard, and he didn't. You look at, okay, well, you have other positions at wide receiver that didn't get fulfilled the way you needed them to. Defensively, you look at bringing in guys instead of keeping your own guys. Like there's a snowball effect of a lot of things that if you really sit down and talk to people and have the open conversation to be honest about it, with excluding his great things that he's done. The winning culture, you got to give a ribbon to Jon Robinson. Say, like, hey, man, you turned that around. But then there is another portion of a devil's advocate that say to yourself, well, Phillip Rivers, you got him on the back end of it. So, yeah, you're supposed to. Andrew Luck retired. So, yeah, there's an aspect of it, too. Nobody in Jacksonville's competed for a while. So, technically, you did what you were supposed to do. There is that side of it, too, to where it's, yeah, it's a winning culture. Peyton ain't here. Luck ain't here. Phillip Rivers was down after Jacksonville lost their team and it imploded. You did what you were honestly supposed to do. Houston hadn't been competitive. Yeah.
And I also think the ceiling, I think whoever it was, Miss Amy, ultimately, but Mike Vrabel, like, do they feel like they hit the ceiling at this point with what has gone on? In terms of you get to the AFC Championship last year, you were predicted to take care of the Bengals at home. And I'm not saying that that's on the whole organization because, there's certain expectations in that game for Ryan Tannehill and the players. But do you feel like you're in a spot now where you're like, oh, my gosh, like we had a window, right? And now we got to really start making some change. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it happens after you were kind of embarrassed by your former player who Jon Robinson let go and traded away.
Yep.
And I think, like, at that point, that was the trigger.
And as much as we don't want to say AJ was a part of that, it was a part of that. I think that was probably one of the nails in the coffin.
Was. Yeah.
Okay. I was just hoping we were on the same page with that.
Yeah. I don't think the timing of it doesn't align.
No.
And,
And then he admitted after the game, I had it circled.
Well,
you
of
know,
course he
whether,
did. I mean,
of course, anybody would, but he said it out loud for everybody to hear, too, and that didn't help.
Jon Robinson's biggest decision, or a handful of his biggest decisions, up there with his biggest decision as GM of the Tennessee Titans, was exposed as the wrong one in the worst possible moment for him.
Yep. Yeah.
For this season. Because if this team is in win-now mode, which it clearly is, then trading A.J. Brown was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And we could talk about the Patriot way and the Titan way that was attempted to be established here that, yeah, you don't give guys that have the durability issues. And I've been a proponent of that because I still think that long-term we might look back and say, the money. But if this team's in win-now mode right now, I think Amy Adams-Strunk is realizing, well, let's go ahead and reload this thing while we still have the pieces to do so.
Mm-hmm. Before it gets too far out of control.
And before it gets too far out of control where Mike Vrabel is looking elsewhere. Ultimately, that is what happened yesterday. Mike Vrabel received as strong of a vote of confidence as he possibly could have received from Amy Adams-Strunk in this organization saying, you know what? If things are on the decline, let's go ahead and make enough changes around you to quickly reload. That way you're not looking elsewhere and trying to leave us.
That right there is probably one of the biggest takeaways of it all. Mm-hmm. Before he looks elsewhere. Vrabel, that is. Whether he is or not a defending coach of the year has options now if it don't go his way or if there's a power struggle. And Kayla, you said what for the people that are just coming on? You've been chirping about what, though? Their chemistry looked a little off.
Well, they both, I feel like things their way, right? I mean, Jon was there before Mike. I know that Mike came in under Jon, but whose hire was that ultimately? We don't really know who had the final say. I mean, Amy did. She gave the check mark. I don't know, though, if it was a Patriots connection, but then once Vrabel comes in, he likes things his way. That's not a surprise. Yeah. Like, I'm around that organization every day almost. Yeah. Like, Vrabel is a guy set in his ways, and I feel like Jon was too. And now you're seeing kind of reports come out that Vrabel's going to have a lot of power in this all. And so that doesn't surprise me really. But now it could be, okay, it's on Vrabel then. Decisions going out, if they don't work, it's on the head coach.
615-737-1045 is the number. Lots of your reaction this morning. Plus, Keith Bulluck, former Titan, at 7:20. Davd Boclair of SI.com at 8:20. And Rhett Bryan, our weekly sit-down with him, comes at a good time this morning at 9 a.m. Your phone calls on the other side next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster from MyPhDWeightLoss.com. You guys heard me say it time and time again. Summertime fine happens in the winter, so that means you got to get to work. How do I get to work? Well, first thing first is you need a plan. You need somebody to help guide you, assist you, tell you what to do. I'll be honest, that was one of my biggest detriments. I didn't know the actual plan, and that's where my PhD weight loss came to play. They give you a plan specifically for you. It maps out what you're supposed to do, how you do it, why you do it, and really gives you understanding. It almost became like a counseling session in the sense where it's like, hey, this is why, and this is what you need to do. And I was okay with that. And if you're at that point that I was, guess what? Go to myphdweightloss.com and start that conversation and figure out if it's for you. On average, most male clients lose between 3 to 5 pounds a week, and female clients lose 2 to 3 pounds a week if done properly. And yes, this will be a challenge, but it's a challenge worth having. Myself, I've enjoyed it. I know Buck has also, and I've had many other guys hit me up about this also. Again, myphdweightloss.com, and please tell them that Ramon sent you.
Wednesday edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors in Nashville. 615-737-1045 is our number as we take lots of your phone calls over the next 4 hours. Reacting to the news of the day yesterday, Jon Robinson let go as the Tennessee Titans general manager. We begin with Caples this morning on the phone lines. First up, good morning, Caples. How are you?
Good morning, my friends. Good morning.
Good morning.
I got so much to say and so little time, so let me get right to it, man. It's time for a change, people. Titans fans is tired. Amy Adams Shrunk is tired. This is crucial. It needed to happen. It should have happened, and it happened. So now we at that point, man. We owe J. Rob appreciation because he changed the culture when he came here, but he also sent it right back to where it was right when he came here. Because the cap is in trouble, we might have to cut some folks. We might be in a bad place next season. Think about this, guys. You might have to let Derrick Henry go. You might have to let Tannehill go. You definitely got to cut Lawan. It's a crucial time in Titans football right now, and we got to get that person in here who's going to work with Mike Ravel and who's going to work with the front office and work with people to get the right product on the field to make us successful, man, because we tired. All these Titan fans is tired. We tired of being mediocre. We tired of every 8 years we'll have a nice little run and make it to a number one seed and lose at home in the first round of the playoffs. We tired of that. We tired of 3 yards in a cloud of dust football. We tired of 17 points a game on offense. We tired of it, man. Ramon, let me ask you something, man. What was the culture in Steelers town, bro? Y'all was going after Super Bowls. Nothing less, right? Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, that was it every year.
Super Bowl or bust. Did nobody care about no AFC North title, man? It was guaranteed y'all was gonna win that. Is you getting to the Super Bowl or are you going home? Y'all got a coach right now that ain't had a losing season and people talking about firing him because ain't nobody got to the Super Bowl or close to it up there lately. That's a culture that people want. You want to be up there. We don't want to be the underdog team that sneaks up on people. We want to be respected, man, and we want to be one of the premier teams in the NFL. We about to open a new stadium. You think they want to see 10 points a game in that new stadium? Yeah. When that stadium open, the culture got to change, and this is crucial, man. It's crucial to make the decision. No, don't give Mike Rabel all the power. He just needs to have a say. But whatever you do, you better turn this thing around and get it going the right way, or you can kiss that new stadium goodbye. Ooh. Tighten up, man.
Ooh. Thank you, Caples. Appreciate the call. A strong start this morning.
It's a strong start.
Now, doesn't Belichick have a lot of the say with his situation?
Big time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He did.
Stadium's happening either way, by the way.
It is.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do
But it would
with
be nice if they scored more points in it.
Yeah.
And honestly,
it's got to be an attraction.
That element of it, I expected to be a factor in maybe 2 years. Like, hey, we want to have a GM that is putting a winning product on the field to win as soon as the new building is open.
Oh, I think that was a factor in this decision.
I do too.
Big time.
But I expected it. I expected that bill to need to be paid in the next year and a half, not already now. But it's certainly a factor. The stadium is happening, which is why this is happening.
One of the reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is also the case too. We've had callers call in, listeners to us, fans of this team call in and say this about the stadium, like it's not what it needs to be. It's not because of this, and everybody's selling their tickets. What I don't think this franchise want, this coach doesn't want Vrabel, and these players either. You don't want this to be Vegas, Nashville, meaning you don't want this to be L.A. You know what I'm saying? You don't want this to be one of those tourist visit stops to where everybody and their mom come in for a weekend and, hey, let's go to the Titans game because the tickets are cheap. Well, you want your fans to pack that out. You want that to be a place in which you say to everybody else, look, yeah, you come in here, but this is also a Titans nation in here. Mm-hmm. We come in here. It's going to be hostile to here, whether it was true or not, because I think certain sections have their own credence in how they deal with it. But if one section is saying, look, it's more of the other color than it is of ours, that's a part of the product on the field, too.
And look, that has gotten better, guys.
I know it has.
I've seen it with my own eyes. But you're right. It's got to continue to get better.
Yeah.
And it's got to become that hostile environment again for the road team to come play at. and especially in a new stadium.
I told you I used to hate facing the crowd here because of how hostile it was in those post-2009 teams where it was hostile as heck. You go warm up in the end zone, and you be like, man, this is beyond football and how you trash talking me. You know what I'm saying? But it's a part of what you want, right?
08 team that went 13-3 played in front of a lot of incredible crowds.
Yeah.
That's for sure. 615-737-1045, the number. Alvin is in Nashville, up next with us this morning. Good morning, Alvin.
Hey, good morning. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
Good.
We're good.
Hey, I just want to start by telling J-Rob, hey, man, I know you're getting a lot of grief this morning, man, but we honestly appreciate you, man, because I'm going to tell you something. He made a team better that he inherited that had Mariota and Wizard Hunt or whatever. So we appreciate you for that. Now, with that being said, Miss Amy, what happened with Todd Downing? Because during that time, I will say this. I will say that he inherited Arthur Smith's offense, and Todd Downing ain't got no better. But I also want to tell y'all, man, if y'all get the opportunity, go back to the draft when Mike Vrabel walked away from the table. When he walked away from the table, look at Miss Amy's face. The clock was on J-Rob right then. Miss Amy was looking like, what are we doing? Like what are we doing? Like the clock was on right then. But I'm just gonna hang up and listen.
Thanks, Alvin. I will say this about Todd Downing. If you're betting on Mike Vrabel being the guy to fix it, then you're going to allow Mike Vrabel to keep his guys on staff that he wants. And Todd Downing is clearly a guy on staff that he wants right now. But here's the other thing I'll say about this. Amy Adams-Strunk has made it clear that if you're not living up to expectations and you're part of the problem, you're gone.
You're gone.
And I think at the end of this season, if things continue to move in a negative direction, then, yeah, maybe there's a change there that that organization has more say to Mike Vrabel to say, all right, this guy's got to go. We're going to give you more power, but you've got to make a change at offensive coordinator. Perhaps this is too small of a sample size at the end of this season in 5 games to get to that point and make a decision either way. And it likely is. I would expect this now actually gives Todd Downing more job security, if I had to guess. But that's not something the owner is going to get involved in until things get really, really, really bad, is basically forcing you to fire a coordinator.
Yeah, I think that too. And just real quick too, when it comes down to that 2019 team, I think we're talking about 2 different platforms when we mention these 2 teams and what they accomplished. I'll just start with the offensive line in a sense. You had Jack, a young Nate who started, if I'm not mistaken, later in the season that finally got that called on. You had Ben Jones, Dennis Kelly, Taylor Lewan, and Roger Saffold. That in itself right there is better than what this line is too. The management of that was Jon Robinson, right? That right there, that was different in 2019 than it is right now. Skill players. You had Marcus Mariota, and also Tannehill, who took over later in the season, correct? Yep. From that point right there, you also had Derek and Dion. You had AJ and Corey. You had Cody. You had Adam. You had Khalif. There was a bunch of guys on this team that weren't there. And just on the defensive side, we ain't even got to that one just yet. You had Darren Bates, Jayon. You had Harold. You had David Longe. You had Woodyard. Leaders also. There's a difference. Something has trickulated down to where that standard kind of left from 2019 too. Even on the back end of that, you had Bayer, Cruikshank, Adoree, Armani, like Logan Ryan. There was a different roster. Kenny Vaccaro was on this team. There was a difference in roster. Whether that was a slip that's the difference between 2019 and 2022, those are 2 different entities we're speaking of. And that's also a Jon Robinson thing, correct?
Though I would say you have a better defense now than you did in 2019.
Yeah.
But I think the leadership's a little bit different. It was more leadership, I think, that resonated at least on the offensive side of the ball, and you don't have that right now, which is the biggest detriment to me on this team.
Well, you didn't have to pay Ryan Tannehill then. And now you really have
a
to
big part of it.
Pay Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. It's on a bigger deal than he was back then.
No, it's not even. That's not even necessarily true, because it's not even a matter of necessarily paying Ryan Tannehill, because when you signed him to the deal, you got him at a good market value. One of the biggest issues that affected J-Rob was that you went and got Julio, and only did it not work out, that you had to then renegotiate Ryan's deal to where it helped FUBAR the cap.
Yeah, right.
So, but we have to differentiate between salary and cap number. Those are two different things. We can't conflate those two things together.
The cap number's huge this year.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying is a major issue that J-Rob had with the cap.
You had to pay him more on the cap because of the Julio Jones trade and, to a lesser extent, the Jadeveon Clowney move. Force you to move money around and make the cap number now bigger. And makes the draft picks you make that much more important, and you missed on a lot of those.
And also, they decided that they were going to pour that money into defensive players than offensive players.
Right.
Bud's an example. Harold Landry's an example.
Oh.
And look, if you look at them on the surface, guys in terms of their production, very productive players. And this is where this is beyond J-Rob's control. They got hurt.
Yes.
Some of it.
Yes.
Because he did draft Caleb Farley.
Well, no,
year.
absolutely. I was just saying those two individuals
those
in
specifics.
particular. Now you get into the draft thing, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yep. 615-737-1045, the number. Bam is in Nashville up next. Good morning, Bam.
Yo, what up, fam? Everybody all right?
Hey.
Absolutely. Good morning.
Man, look, man. Yesterday was a shocker. An unexpected shocker. We was hoping for another shocker, but, maybe that'll come another day. Either which way it go, I think to the point of where I'm not going to say I saw this happening in April when the draft happened, but I think Mike Vrabel's expression when we got rid of AJ said a whole lot, and that was the beginning of the end there. That was the beginning of the end. I honestly don't feel like Vrabel wanted to let AJ walk, you know what I'm saying, especially after saying a few weeks, as long as he was the head coach, But now it's just kind of like, I think, and Vrabel is a very, strategic guy. He's been saying, in press conferences in very slick ways, our offense isn't this because of either draft or because we've let guys go. So he's been frustrated about it. He's just had to be the professional about it. Now that it's kind of like where he is, it's just kind of like, hey, man, tomato, man. And he's working through what he has, but you can tell this isn't where, he wants to be. So now let's see if he can construct something with the roster that he has. I either said two things was going to happen with the Titans because they're this type of team. We'll get to the playoffs, get put out first round, maybe second, or he'll end up going all the way. He'll find a way to go all the way to the Super Bowl with this team. That's just Vrabel. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like with the change coming, the change is needed. But I feel like we need more change on offense than anything starting this week. Like this line, we need another receiver. Let's just see what Vrabel can do, man. I mean, I'm here for the ride, so either which way it go, let's tighten up.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the call, man. Yeah, that's the fascinating part of this is how this affects the very short term on Sunday.
And there were some small moves, obviously, with the transaction that we got yesterday. Nothing big, but they were moves. I mean, they let go of some guys, and that won't be the last this week.
Yeah, we'll get into that more as the show continues this morning. But Ryan Cowden, the interim, also, we'll kind of give you the background on him. And it's similar to the upbringing Jon Robinson had. This is Jon Robinson's guy, who is the interim general manager. So there's only so much you can change in the middle of the season, but a couple of moves that were certainly interesting yesterday. We go next to Eric in Nashville. You can join us at 615-737-1045. Hey, Eric.
Hey, guys, I tell you what, it definitely proves that Amy ain't messing around because, of course, Robinson signed that contract, I guess it was a few months before he traded A.J. Brown, so he's set for the next 4 years. But, guys, let me say this. Amy, she definitely cares about the fans and listens to the pulse of fans because I tell you what, a few years ago at an event, I met her at a Titans event. Eddie George and her were speaking, and there were other former Titans players there as well as media members there and everything. And when I met her, you know what the first words out of her mouth were? He says, I hear your voice on the radio. I just want to appreciate your support of the Titans. And she told me that. I was floored because you don't think of an owner listening to sports talk radio, but apparently she does. So I don't know if she's listening to the show, but she does listen, which means she hears the pulse of the fans and she cares about the pulse of the fans. So she does not mess around. And also she was pretty busy yesterday because she apparently bought some property in Wilson County off Wilson Pike and Brentwood paid like $333 million. What she's going to do with that, I don't know. But she definitely cares about this team and cares about the fans, guys. That's just all I wanted to say. Y'all take care. Tighten up. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Eric.
Appreciate it, Eric.
I think that's the calming presence of this, if you're a Titans fan at this point, is that the last time Amy Adams Strunk gambled and got rid of somebody earlier than many other in the NFL would have, worked out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
When Mike Mularkey was fired and you decided to go with Mike Vrabel starting at the end of the 2017 season and into 2018. But by all accounts, her relationship with Mike Mularkey was really good.
Oh, yeah.
She loved Mike Mularkey.
And Mike Mularkey was a great guy and did some good things here too, right? Every decision she's had to make or is going to have to make in the future is going to be hard. That's part of being an owner. But I think she's done a really good job navigating all of this in such a short amount of time. And she hasn't been here that long. But the fans love her.
Yeah.
And that means something because there's a lot of owners. I can list a lot of owners that fans are like, can we just get rid of them?
Yeah.
And there's a certain ceiling for many organizations around the league because of who the owner is. And I'm looking at you, Indianapolis. I'm serious. I'm not trolling.
You're right.
That's legit. That there are plenty of organizations where there's a certain ceiling because the owner is just not going to be a winner in their current state. I don't think that's the issue here. I think that gives you hope if you're a Titans fan at this point, the ambition that Amy Adams Strunk has for the Titans organization. When we come back, we continue the conversation on the phone lines at 615-737-1045. And we give you the background on the Titans' new interim general manager, Ryan Cowden, what to know about him and his possibilities to be the guy for this organization moving forward. That's next. Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 1045 The Zone.
There's no gift that's more beautiful, more versatile, or more meaningful than a beautiful piece of jewelry gifted from the heart. And there's no better place to find that meaningful gift than Genesis Diamonds. At Genesis, making memorable moments is their thing. This holiday season, Genesis has put together their most impressive selection of can't-miss gifts. Rings, earrings, pendants, bracelets, and bands from $100 to $250,000. Now through December 12th, Genesis is offering 5-year zero-interest financing on any holiday purchase with absolutely nothing down. So that beautiful eternity band is just $50 a month. Or that 2-carat pair of diamond stud earrings, just $100 a month. Everything included in this amazing offer. Even Genesis' huge selection of hand-picked GIA-certified diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolex watches. Make it a Christmas to remember with something special, something timeless, and something meaningful. From Genesis Diamonds, get 5 years zero-interest financing with zero down now through December 12th. Genesis Diamonds on approved credit.
Wednesday edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors on 104.5 The Zone. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling on the phone lines at 615-737-1045. We go next to Goody Mike in Cleveland. His first chance to react to the Titans news, the firing of Jon Robinson yesterday. Good morning, Mike.
What up? Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, look. I've been humble. I haven't been saying exactly what was on my mind. Worried about, with all the smack talk on Twitter. I'm trying to be good out here. But you know what? I don't care because I deactivated the account, so don't try to at me or DM me. So, as far as Eric said, Miss Amy is listening. What's up, Miss Amy? If you are listening, I'm a loyal fan, been a fan since a young kid. Whenever you're giving out tickets, think about your boy in Cleveland. I got your back. I had a whole hood show up. But as far as J-Rob goes, and as far as with his job, so what it comes down to me is like homeboy called in Monday and was like, when the dude at Popeyes ain't cooking good chicken, they get rid of it. So Miss Amy, was looking at the chicken, and then when she tasted it, she tasted that it was that old Fisher grease. Because I've been saying this since the beginning of the season. This seemed like Fisher's tribute year. This don't seem like no new, updated nothing. It's been more of the same for years, and that was easy to tell. When J-Rob came in, we was all sold on, he's a scout professional, and, he's going to change his scouting, and he's going to update the way that we draft, and he's going to update the way that we bring players in and everything like that. I appreciate J-Rob for the job that he did when we didn't have no ownership, really. But, really, when we look at what's going on now, we still at the same problem of we don't have a wide receiver. We still got potential, pretty good quarterback that, has some upside, but is he a Super Bowl? Is he Super Bowl contending? Don't know. Same stuff. You did? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man. So, as far as it goes, J-Rob, he didn't fully fill out everything that he promised, not just us, but obviously Miss Amy on. So, thank you for your service, sir. And Miss Amy, thank you for keeping the passion within this franchise, within this organization, with the moves that you're making. Thank you for, after so long of wondering if we even had a real owner coming in and being a real owner, real talk. So, that's really all I got to say, man. No more of the same. It's time to update. It's time to get rid of, the Fisher tributes of, 8-8 or 9-7 and lucking out being in the AFC South. Schaefer, you know me. I was waiting on it. I need to hear that line. All right,
this has been a filibuster. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the call.
So,
waiting for Jack Bauer's 24 music to begin in the background before he lets us go.
I'll say this as far as my opinion before we have our guests come on and stuff like that. Bully, I can't wait to hear the reaction from him, man. To me, I thought about this yesterday. J-Rob's firing, I think, was just a succession of things that happened before, obviously. You look at the situation of free agents being brought in, not producing. That gets them. Clowney, black eye. Julio, black eye. The guy that came, Vic Beasley, black eye. And you look at the cap situation, how that unfolded also. That's a black eye. Whether you got production out of guys or not. Y'all guys know I've been saying this for like the last couple of years when you're dealing with your guys. You look at all the players that left, even from like that 2019 draft. Mm-hmm. AJ's out of there. You got Derek, yeah, that's beautiful. You sign your hometown. You got Taylor. Taylor's situation as of late. Some people would have thought you should have cut bait last year or the year before to get something out of it. You also look at the retention of keeping Roger Saffold. That, in a sense, he's playing well. I don't think he's missed much time up there. You say, oh, well, injuries. Well, injuries are part of it, and you got to manage that aspect of it, too. I actually looked up Jack Conklin's situation before he left, too. Jack, 2016, his rookie, 100% of the snaps. 2017, 1,021 snaps, 100%. 2018, he 9 games. And then his last year here, it was 16 games he played, 94% of the snaps, which means he may have come out of a game or two if they were up. That was a good year for the Titans. And then the next year's for Cleveland, 100%, 77%. And then right now he started 10 games out of 10 games this year. This guy was an all-pro his rookie year into the league. I don't know many people that's letting go of all-pro guys. And I know you say, well, Moan, that's in hindsight. No, I'm not letting go of an all-pro guy. And then, of course, the AJ situation up north this past weekend. Whether you look at it or not, it happened. We saw it. Everybody had to peel back their eyelids and say, man, dang, we had that, and we got obliterated by that. And then on the back end of AJ's situation, you have Jeff conversation that came up, whether it was true or not, whether Jeff didn't want to talk about it or not. Jeff has a quote in the Athletic that said they told him, we not going to give you what you think you're worth. Now you look at AJ's situation from that phone call that got leaked and disappeared. We not going to give you what you're worth. Now, you look at it and everybody say, well, AJ got personal. Well, of course you got personal. If I'm telling you, okay, in negotiations, give me 30, then we walk it back down. Now, I'll give you 16. Okay, now let's walk it back up. The fact that you said I'm not worth 20 plus, and the team gave me 25 plus.
And I heard he was okay with 22.
22 was the number. Teron said he talked to him specifically and told him that's what he would have settled for. Because if you look at the taxes of 2 states, 22 is 25 in Pennsylvania, hands down. Right. It's as close as probably $100,000. He'd have taken it. And you didn't come up above 20, that's disrespectful. Now you got to look at this on the back end of where Jeff is at. I've been saying for the longest, get Jeff paid before the season starts up. I thought I saw 2 Brinks trucks at camp when I walked up there a couple times because Jeff was about to get paid. Now you got Jeff with the entire franchise in his hand. And you know what he says? Him and his agent? I dare y'all not to. If I wasn't going to get 30, you got to give me 29 and a half now because the guy that you should have paid burned you. And you can franchise me all you want to, but that's going to get overly expensive for you. That's a J-Rob situation. There's a trend in which J-Rob operates. And it's, no, we don't need to. We're going to go find a cheaper guy. Sometimes you got to keep those guys. AJ is a Titan, and he wanted to be. Jeff is a Titan and has been on record saying he wanted to be. Bayard is too. Derek is too. But then you got to make this whole. That was one of the biggest reasons right there. To me. You burn now. Who has more power on this team than Jeff Simmons?
Well, now more than ever.
He's not going to get paid till there's a new GM here either. So any chance you have at giving him money before he has an even bigger season, it's gone.
And you know what happens behind that? It's just like houses. Unless there's a crash, the price goes up.
Right. Ryan Cowden, the interim general manager in his 23rd NFL season, is 7th with the Titans, promoted to player personnel vice president in 2018, originally joining the Titans in 2016 as the director of player personnel. Interviewed with the Steelers and Giants early this year as they search for general managers, and according to reports, was one of several candidates for the Steelers who interviewed more than once, and also interviewed with Washington in 2021. 43 years old, one of Robinson's first big hires that he made in 2016, and spent 16 years in the player personnel department with the Carolina Panthers, rising from scouting assistant to assistant director of college scouting. So if you're asking the question, is Ryan Cowden the guy for the Titans? I would be very surprised.
Yeah. In my opinion, if he's a Jon Robinson guy,
yes,
first and foremost, let's start with that.
Ooh,
I don't see that happening, but I think that you got to go outside a little bit and look. And he could. Maybe he ends up being the guy. Right. Or maybe he ends up staying in a different role. But he has interviewed with other places, as you mentioned. He did not get those jobs. But I don't think he is here long term.
The philosophy's got to line up now.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely does. 615-737-1045. The number. More of your phone calls on the other side. And next, we get into the first roster moves made by Ryan Cowden after his first day as interim general manager. The next steps for the Titans moving forward as Jon Robinson is relieved of his duties as Titans general manager. 1 hour down, 3 more to go. Keith Bulluck coming up in hour 2, and much, much more. Damone, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
You don't have to go through yet another year with that knee pain or back pain. People with chronic joint pain are getting real lasting relief from QC Kinetics. Hey, it's Ramon Foster. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in advanced regenerative medicine. Their unique protocols using healing agents from your own body to target aching joints, repairing and restoring damaged tissue. So you can move again with no surgery, no drugs, no downtime. Got shoulder pain, excruciating hip pain? If you have arthritis pain, a lingering pain from an injury, don't let them operate on you or give you more steroids. And say no to the pain pills. Call QC Kinetics and see if their life-changing, all-natural treatments can get you living your best life in the new year. I'm telling you, people are raving about these treatments. This is the future of joint pain management, and appointments are available as soon as the next week. Make 2023 the year you say goodbye to joint pain. QC Kinetics in Nashville, Clarksville, and Murfreesboro. And you can reach them at 615-249-4024. Again, the number is 615-249-4024.
It is 7:02. Good morning. I'm Jonathan Schaefer from the Superbook.com sports desk. The Titans fired general manager Jon Robinson yesterday. The dismissal occurred 2 days after the Titans were routed by the Eagles 35-10, which featured former Titans receiver A.J. Brown scoring 2 touchdowns. In her statement, Titans controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk said, "I believe there is more to be done and higher aspirations to be met." The Titans currently lead the AFC South with a 7-5 record and have won back-to-back division titles. Robinson and head coach Mike Vrabel signed contract extensions in February. Robinson had a winning record in all 6+ of his seasons in charge and became the second winningest general manager in franchise history. Ryden Cowden, the team's vice president of player personnel, will oversee player personnel for the rest of the season. Other NFL news, the LA Rams have claimed quarterback Baker Mayfield off waivers. NBA tonight, Oklahoma City at Memphis, 7 o'clock tip. College basketball, Eastern Kentucky at number 7 Tennessee, 6 o'clock tip for that. Pittsburgh at Vanderbilt at 8. For all foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 off and running on a boat. Kayla and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors on 104.5 The Zone. Much more of your reaction to the Titans firing general manager Jon Robinson. Former Titan Keith Bulluck coming up in 15 minutes. We'll get his initial reaction as well as what he thinks the next step should be for this team as it moves forward. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Jonathan Schaefer, our producer. He's the best producer in the world.
Hands down.
Yeah, I mean,
Hands
I was
down.
just kind of waiting for that
The
second.
best producer in the world.
Pausing for dramatic effect. 615-737-1045. You can talk to him and then talk to us. And some news this morning and some words from Buck Rising, our teammate, a part of the Lucas Panzica show after us. I kid. In this moment, we'll be serious. A part of the Buck Rising show, A to Z Sports covering the Titans, confirming Adam Schefter's report yesterday that there was no Mike Vrabel undermining Jon Robinson, is what this report says. Says, I've been told that is not the case. This is a simple decision of the owner wanting to go in a different direction. That was the quote from Adam Schefter yesterday. Buck is confirming that report and saying Robinson's compounding mistakes had been wearing on Titans ownership for some time. While Vrabel and Robinson have had disagreements on personnel decisions, no public or private undermining of the former GM by the head coach is said to have occurred. So take that for what you will.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, at least perception says what, though? There was a decision made that Vrabel's the guy that I trust most, and I feel better by putting the franchise in his hands.
Yeah, and I don't know of anybody who specifically came out and said, well, Vrabel went in there and undermined it. I've never heard somebody say that in the past 24 hours, like on talk show radios so I'm not necessarily thinking that was ever the case, but they did have disagreements on personnel things like that. That's part of the article too. So,
Yeah.
It
is. It's
can't
part
shy
of
away
it.
from that.
I got to go check that out then. That's going to be interesting. You saw too much body language stuff, I think, at times, and maybe I'm just a bad reader of that type of stuff, but there's a lot that you just kind of look at, even some of the stuff that Vrabel said in public. Like, I got to work with what I have. Like,
Right.
There were some signs of that being at least all not on the same page, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is, and now it's moving forward, trying to find another person to fill that role.
First personnel moves for new interim general manager Ryan Cowden yesterday. Torrey Carter waived from the active roster. I think that's a little bit of a surprise.
I feel like he's been here forever.
Yeah, fullback who played in 9 games for the team this season, including 3 starts. Outside linebacker Sam Okawanu, who has played in 5 games this season, he's waived as well. Offensive lineman Eric Smith and outside linebacker Wyatt Ray were released from the practice squad. The Titans also signed kicker Caleb Shudak back to the practice squad as well. Those are the official transactions. It appears more is in the works for those spots that we will see in the coming days, potentially a corner from the Atlanta practice squad. And we'll see if that move gets made official today. 615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in. We go next to Swab Zombie, making his way back onto the show. What's going on, Swab Zombie?
Swab?
Mom, I made it. I finally made it, Mom. I'm here. Caleb, first and foremost, welcome to the team. We're glad and proud to have you, so I had to get that out there.
Hey, thanks, Swab.
But Ramon hit it on the head, guys. Titans fans, the great thing is J-Rob is gone, but the reality is we should have Petit right tackle, Conklin right guard, Jones, Saffold, and then we'd be looking for a left tackle, okay? Henry is an elite running back. He should be able to walk 100 yards every game. If we had that line, he would be rushing for 200 yards a game. And the simple fact is, everyone that thought that this line was going to be enough for our team and to make it work should be fired. At some point, they should have raised their hand and said, hey, this is not going to work. This is not enough. Our play style is to run. You don't have to be a pass blocker, but if you can run block, then we will have success. So everybody should have been fired. Everybody's head should be on the table, and you could even hear Mike Keith sound a little bit more concerned talking yesterday because he knew serious things were happening. But to continue that conversation, I didn't get to speak on Todd Downing, and the simple fact is the past 3 weeks, the organization, the Titans, have been an embarrassment. And for us to allow him to go to the podium and know what he was going to say, and for the organization to allow him to say, it is a serious situation where if he's receiving death threats and he's on his way home, but what state trooper has not heard that excuse or that line from someone that's intoxicated, an excuse? So he went up on the podium with the drunk or intoxicated excuse, and guys, we're not idiots. Titans fans, sometimes we're not the smartest, but we're not idiots. You cannot tell me from the timeline of the game being over in Green Bay, sometime in that morning, that's when the death threat or whatever came up. That does not make sense. Other authorities would have been involved. It's pretty simple. And for us to allow him to go on the podium in front of national media and they know that's what he's going to say is a complete embarrassment. And for that simple reason that you're supposed to lead by example, he should not be there. He should be gone, guys. That's all I got. I love you. Let's keep it rolling, guys. Tighten up. Gas pedal.
What up,
Thank you, Swamp Zombie. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's good points. I mean, ultimately, the biggest issue Jon Robinson had was the inability to get any first-round picks to a second contract.
Yep.
That is the problem this organization had, and it's not just that one issue, but it's the flip side of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, it further highlights your need to get draft picks that can perform and contribute right away on discount prices.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
When you gamble on the fact that we're going to always have to draft well and have rookies that are contributing on rookie contracts, and then you miss on those guys, that's what Amy Adams-Trunk is turning around and saying, now wait a minute. We had 91 players used last year, and Mike Vrabel made it work. Mike Vrabel made it work with guys who I didn't know they were NFL players the year before.
You think he knew all of their names, like, specifically?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's another, when you're rotating it like that, finish your point, but I'm just like,
right.
91 is...
It's Amy Adams-Trunk looking around saying, what is the source of the success that we're having as an organization? Is it the draft picks that I've held a jersey up with for press conferences the day after they're brought home after Thursday night of the draft?
Mm-hmm.
Not really. The guys I'm shaking their hands in the locker room as they clinch another AFC South championship are guys that were not here at training camp when I spoke to everybody to say hello. That's the perspective that Amy Adams-Strunk has for this team right now.
It is, and I think I know most owners take pride in their roster. They take pride in their team. They take pride in their coaches, the operation of it too. And that's one aspect of it right there that just, like you said, Will, that's kind of bothersome in a sense. I don't want to speak for her in a sense of saying, hey, she probably shook hands of guys after the locker room that she just didn't know. But ownership isn't in the day-to-day just passing of those players. Like, you got to get to know those guys, and the fact that those guys burned you on the back end of it, and then you got these new guys that you've had to restructure for. Like, I'm looking at Zach Cunningham's situation. 5 games and barely much of any production last year, right? We got to look at that situation. I know Buzz injuries been what it is too, but you got to look at that one. Like Jon Robinson, you paid for that. And here we are dealing, just it's the same old story of it's confusion of what the expectation is here when you've seen what you've had good too.
Next, we bring former Titan Keith Bulluck into the conversation, and I want to ask him, how much control as a player on a defense are you comfortable with your head coach having, who's also heavily involved with the defense? We'll get Cable's thoughts on that on the other side, and much, much more. Your phone calls after that as well at 615-737-1045. At Amon, Kayla, and Will, 1045 The Zone. Hey, it's Will Bowling here once again for my friends at League Company. Hey, do you have a ceiling light fixture that flickers a little bit? Do you need an extra outlet or two in one specific spot that you're always thinking about in your home? Do you have wall switches that don't seem to work? Well, these all seem to be simple issues, but they are rarely do-it-yourself projects. Dealing with electricity requires the expertise of an experienced professional, and you need to call the pros over at League Company. Their electrical team can solve any problem you have safely and efficiently. And right now, you can enjoy $20 off your next electrical service call. So whether it's an extra outlet or two, a ceiling light fixture that's just always flickering a little bit, we all notice these things, right? Well, now you can enjoy $20 off your next electrical service call. And the phone number for League Company, it's easy to remember, 615-567-1000. You can find them online at leaguecompany.com as well to schedule an appointment today. That's 615-567-1000. That's leaguecompany.com. League Company, all you need. Wednesday edition of the show, Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors on 104.5 The Zone. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Lots to discuss. 1 day removed from Jon Robinson's firing as the Titans general manager. And we go to the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline and check in with one of our good friends, Keith Bulluck, former Titan linebacker, who joins us this morning. What's going on, Keith? How are you?
I'm all right, man. How's everything with you?
Well, I'm just wondering if making delicious coffee is a qualification to lead the Tennessee Titans organization. Have you gotten any calls yet?
Nah, I'm not really expecting any. But look, I was a 3-time All-Pro and did a lot in these leagues. Jeff Saturday got a job, so I'm thinking maybe I should. My football IQ is impeccable. Believe it or not, Will. So,
I believe it. I absolutely believe it.
You got a little jokester in your voice this morning, man. What's going on?
Bully,
What's up
bringing
with the chuckle this morning, Bully?
No, man, just up making the schedule for next week for my coffee shop. Tell you the truth.
All right, here we go then. We'll get him.
Grinder.
Grinder, yeah.
Keith, what was your initial reaction yesterday to the news of Jon Robinson being let go?
Just like everybody else, it was pretty shocking. But then when you take it in and you hear all the different opinions and you really think about it, it makes sense. And I love them. I mean, first and foremost, I think Jon Robinson did a great job. From when he got here, where the organization was, and to how he's leaving it. You always kind of want to leave something as you got it, or if not better. And Jon Robinson did that, and he'll go on to do great things for other teams. And anytime something like this, it's like a learning lesson, probably, and that's all it is. But yeah, it was just pretty shocking. But Miss Amy, she wants to win. She's been around this organization since the beginning. She knows what it meant to her dad, the late Bud Adams, to bring the Titans here, what it meant, as an Oiler, as the Oilers when she was young as a kid, the different heartbreaks, different seasons, and now she's in control, and she wants to win. So it makes sense.
Bully, you've been around this organization too, man. As far as something like this happening in the middle of the season, what's the reason? And I know for sure as players, we're held to a certain standard. And it seems to me that GMs and coaches and front office management is also. Where was that lack then as far as performance on Jon Robinson's side?
I think when you look at some of the moves that, he has made and that he hasn't made, maybe some of the draft picks that people have disagreed with or that haven't panned out, that's definitely hasn't helped him. And then, obviously AJ having a huge game. What was interesting to me, I always thought Jon and Vrabel were on the same page, but I just saw the clip of the draft room when, the A.J. Brown trade what happened. And Vrabel, nonverbal communication, says a lot. And I don't think he was too happy with that. So, it also makes sense because, look, the Titans, unless Traylon Burks comes back and, provides the firepower that they need from, the offensive standpoint, going down the field and can provide the big plays that he was beginning to do until, unfortunately, he got hurt in that Philadelphia game. We never know how it would have panned out, but neither here nor there. I just think that they can get someone in here or kind of figure out the direction they're going to go in before the Senior Bowl, before the draft, because right now, of course, they're going to win the South, but how far in the playoffs are they going to go unless a lot of things happen, including, shoring up that offensive line, Ramon.
So, yeah, definitely there, man. I'm glad a highlight is being brought to the big boys up front. If you terrorized us for years, man. With that being said, though, Bully, man, it's clear Mike Vrabel is the guy. He's the guy that has input on who he wants inside the building now. They got to be on the same page. So I ask you, man, if you put it out there on Twitter that you're available for sourcing out talent, what is a Mike Vrabel guy then moving forward? Because like you said, their reaction on draft day was something, okay? And just Vrabel looks like he needs a type. What is that then?
Well, I think he has all the type. I think the players that we've seen come through here have been, Mike Vrabel type players, like a Ben Jones. Obviously, these players weren't drafted by Mike Vrabel, but they fit his mold. You got offensively like a guy like a Ben Jones, defensively a guy like a Kevin Byard, guys that are leaders, guys that are going to go out there and obviously play hard. But at the same time, he needs some playmakers. He needs some people on the outside that can get separation and make some plays. And I also think that, the offensive line needs to be shored up. It's just like the type of players that have come in here, like a Robert Woods has been a Mike Vrabel type of player. He's bought into the system. He's come in to be a veteran leader. He's provided all those things that they have asked him to do. It's really being a pro. I would say that's a Mike Vrabel type player. But at the same time, a 10-year veteran Robert Woods, 8 months after ACL surgery, he's going to give you all he can on the field. So I think, obviously some young talent, some veterans that can get out here, perform, and just kind of keep the culture.
And speaking of that culture, Bully, and we'll get to talk to some of the players today. The first guy on my list is Kevin Byard, who was drafted by Jon Robinson, who has been through a lot here in terms of changes in coaching and just overall adversity. But Bully, as a player right now in this situation where you're coming off of a couple losses, there's already a lot of injuries happening, and then this happens. Like, how do you go about that as a player?
Man, you know what? That's funny. It kind of reminds me of the movie Major League.
Yeah.
They're being counted out by ownership, because that's kind of what it seems like. You're asking me from a player standpoint. It's like, dang, I know we lost and AJ did his thing, but I wouldn't understand the business side of it as a player. So I really wouldn't understand the business side. And if I'm Kevin Byard, I really like Jon Robinson, this is a rallying call, because this is obviously the last team that Jon Robinson had his hands on with the Titans. So as a player, this is a rallying call. Like Brandon said, this team could either go one way or another. So, if you're being counted out, this might be a time you have that players-only meeting and you figure out, what we're going to do these last 5 games. And, you run the table. You already know you're in the playoffs, but you got to play a certain style of football. This team is kind of like the team, I've said it before, like the Mike Mularkey team that, won in the playoffs, or Vrabel's team that went up and beat Tom Brady the last game in New England in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? But obviously those teams didn't have the firepower to keep it going. But, it'd be great if, they can send that rallying cry and just, finish off the season on a high note the way that they'll all be happy with.
I think a lot of fans are wondering, okay, now with Jon Robinson not here and Vrabel with the report saying he wants a lot of control of the roster input, do you see anything else happening before the end of this season with any type of significant moves?
I don't know. I don't know what moves there are to be made, to be honest, with 5 games left. That's I don't pay that close attention to, and I not say that, like, the only name you really hear up there is Odell Beckham Jr., and we know that's not happening, you know what I'm saying? And honestly, and I understand head coaches wanting GM power and stuff like that, but to be honest, the last time, I don't even know when that's worked. I know it happened here when Floyd Reese left. Jeff and Mike Reinfeld kind of did whatever it was trash. You know what I'm saying? So I just hope that, Vrabel's a very smart guy. He's a very smart guy. So I just hope he has the infrastructure, within his staff, that he don't have a bunch of yes men, that he has some football people that he listens to. And I think that's where a lot of head coaches get overwhelmed when they have, GM and head coaching duties. I think you need to have someone that, checks and balances when it comes to that.
Great point.
Keith Bulluck with us this morning on our own, Kayla and Will. And Keith, that was my next question, is how comfortable are you with a head coach having that much control? And as a player, how much anxiety would that give you if your head coach is trying to be hands-on with the defense and, he's putting on the pads to, basically lead drills like we see him do so much in practices and in camp, but he's also worrying about the personnel. How much concern would you have over that as a player?
I wouldn't have much, as a player. I'm not really thinking about that stuff. As long as he's bringing dudes in here in this locker room, like I said, that fit our culture and that, that pretty much get down how we get down as the Tennessee Titans. You know what I mean? I remember, and I say, that the situation was trash once Floyd Reese left because we had situations, the guys that were coming into our locker room weren't fitting the culture, and they weren't even playing, and they were happy to just be here, and that had a lot to do with, the people bringing it in. So, look, as football players, you can't fool us, man. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna find out very early what's going on. So if you're bringing, your type player in, and it's a new GM and a new a new GM situation, and the coach has more say in it. And we're looking at these guys coming in, and then we're going to battle, and these guys are sitting on the sidelines eating sunflower seeds with their baseball hats on. That's not it. So, like, as players, that's when it starts to become a problem. So that's why I said that situation was trash, because that's what was happening, and that was like my, last year or whatever here. But, it's tough. I'm being funny by saying it's trash, but it's a tough situation, and it doesn't affect the player until you see the type of players that are coming in, and then especially if things were working and now things ain't working, then that's when red flags happen. But you got time for that. You definitely got time for that.
Keith, how impressed are you with the way Amy Adams-Strunk has handled this and handled other big decisions, and how much do you kind of take away from the ambition that she has to win championships? Just again after this move yesterday.
I think that's kind of like how we opened up. It's one of those things, just entertainment for us, but this is her business. She has certain goals as a business owner, and as a woman owner, she's standing out like, look, she could play with the big boys, and she does that every single year. And the owner, and now it's been a while now, and she's got the new stadium coming. She's got things going on here, and she's like setting the table. And look, I love the all heads will roll mentality, because at the end of the day, this is pressure is what you make it. You know what I mean? So this can be a high pressure job if you're a coach, if you're a player. So imagine being a $1 billion owner that has to make millions of people happy in the city of Nashville. So it's like one of those things that, I think the Titans faithful should appreciate, that their owner is actually listening to them. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, it tells me that she listens to the community. She already has moves that she's going to make. If this doesn't go like this, I'm going to do like this. She's playing chess, not checkers. So it's fun to watch, and it's great to, be on the outside looking in. The organization I play for, and the owner making moves that I've seen other owners make in the past. So it's great.
Bully, I saw this weekend, and we communicated a little bit back and forth on Twitter, man, about the AJ situation. Let me ask you this over the airways. How important was it to try to make the AJ situation work no matter what? I want you to kind of explain that, because you're a savvy guy, you're a business owner yourself, about the economics of saying, yeah, this could have worked. And on the back end of that, something you got to face potentially early off season next summer is how much of you wish you had the power that Jeff has because of that situation right now.
Right. So the first part with AJ, without having like everything in front of me, all the numbers, everyone says, oh, we couldn't have kept him because what he was going to ask. The Titans were the number 1 seed last year. You got to do everything in your power to come back and have all your everything loaded, locked and loaded for the next year to really make a legitimate run at the Super Bowl. And I think, come back to the previous conversation, I think that's what ownership was upset about. They see that they don't have a legitimate run at the Super Bowl. Okay, we've been conference division champions, but look, we need more on our plate, and it's not happening this year. So I think you got to make that work and worry about Big Jeff on the back end, because I don't necessarily know where that money's coming from, but I see that other teams are spending money. I don't know where they get it from neither. So that's why I'm saying it's hard to answer that without this in front. But obviously you weren't going to take care of Jeffrey Simmons this year anyway. So it's like, why wouldn't you just take that hit to the roster? And you know what? Look at the Rams. They're not having a lot of success right now.
No.
And I remember when I first got here with the Titans, Floyd Reese made a push and we went to the Super Bowl. We had all these good teams, and we just didn't win. But we had the caliber and Super Bowl caliber team for a few years in a row, and then we rebuilt, and then we came back again. That's what it's about. But at the same time, you're not going to take care of Big Jeff right now this season. I think you just got to kind of push it. But, that's why I'm making coffee, and, they get paid the big bucks.
Keith Bulluck has been our guest, former Titan at Cable53 on Twitter. Keith, appreciate the time as always, and I might have to stop by and get some of that coffee from you after waking up from a nap to this news yesterday. So, appreciate the time.
Yeah, now you guys have a great week.
You too, bro.
Thanks,
All right,
Bullock.
there's Keith Bulluck with us on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline this morning. Yeah, we both, Kayla and I both were a little late to the news yesterday, and Ramon was like, "Where is everybody?"
He's like, is this the Twilight Zone? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I was getting no response. Me and Schaefer going back and forth in the chat, and I'm like, "Word, I know y'all see this."
Come on, man.
That was my reaction yesterday. We had just finished the job, Will.
I was in the middle of a nap that was
Happens
so
like that.
great that it was one of those naps where you don't realize you're asleep until you wake up. Like, I didn't plan it. I was just sitting there watching soccer and then just, like, dozed off a little bit and came back up.
No.
I
was like, oh, crap.
I was actually riding around yesterday, and Buck played the breaking news. And I was just like, what are they about to joke about now?
Yeah, right.
And Lucas dropped that. I was like, Keisha's talking to him. I'm like, oh!
Yeah.
Oh! As soon as I could get to somewhere to stop
Yeah.
to text you guys, I was like, where are we at, gang? Let's rally right now.
what happens sometimes.
615-737-1045. That's the same text, by the way, that MLB Network people are waking up to right now, because at 5:30 on the West Coast, Aaron Judge just signed for a $40 million a year contract with the Yankees. So
40.
And MLB Network isn't even live right now. There's a
No.
lot of people driving to a studio probably very quickly right now.
Like, get there.
Right.
40.
Some stuff there from Keith Bulluck. Really good conversation with him. That if you missed any of that, I encourage you to go back and find the podcast at the end of the show today. But I want to rehash one specific quote that he had about concern about Mike Vrabel having too much control, or really the lack thereof for him as a player.
Yeah.
We'll get to Jason as well on the phone lines. You can join us at 615-737-1045. And Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 1045 The Zone.
Join 104.5 The Zone coming up tomorrow. Buffalo Wild Wings in Mount Juliet for our next Titans football feast. Stop by for your chance to win Titans versus Jags tickets. We're going to have giveaways each hour thanks to Miller Lite and Buffalo Wild Wings. For a full schedule of events, visit 1045thezone.com.
It's Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, a 1045 The Zone. Special thanks to Keith Bulluck for stopping by, giving us a couple of minutes. Good conversation with him. If you missed it, check out the podcast wherever you download audio, whether that is Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, or 1045thezone.com. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. The word about not being too concerned about Mike Vrabel having more control and simply saying, just bring guys in that fit the culture. Well, yeah. I think if there's one strength that Mike Vrabel has, it's the understanding of what kinds of personalities are and aren't going to fit in that locker room. The Titans are heavily invested in culture.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Titans are in the culture business. And I'll be honest that I have always been pretty cynical about that doesn't really matter that much. And I don't like talking about things that aren't tangible when we talk about sports just as a whole. The Titans are part of the reason why I've come around a little bit more on that culture matters and the right personalities matter. Mike Vrabel at least now has the ability to dictate all of that however he sees fit. And I think Keith is appropriate to say that.
Well, truthfully, to me, I think culture is one of the most important things you can have, though. It has to be established.
You were a player.
Yeah. It has to be established from the locker room, whether it be don't walk on certain emblems, whether it be, hey, everybody's 5 minutes before practice, like whether it be like we dress a certain way on the road, practice a certain way, understanding exactly what is. The culture has to be set no matter what. And I guess I don't know how it was operating inside the Titans building, but it was a sense of there was a disconnect potentially in what Vrabel wanted and what he actually got too. You know what I'm saying? So that's my opinion. I'm not saying that's factual or not. That's my opinion on what it looks like to me.
With the players, I don't know if I understood you correctly. The culture, though, no matter if it was John's guy or Vrabel's guy or if they disagreed on something, what I will say is it didn't matter because the culture was still the culture inside the locker room because I've been there for 6 years watching it. It's not changed in terms of the culture. Yeah. And there's been a lot of players who have come in and out of that locker room. Yeah. But I will also give credit to the leaders in that locker room who have been there for a while.
Facts.
Ben Jones, Kevin Byard. Dude, give them a lot of credit for the amount of guys that have come in and out, and I think they're part of establishing and continuing to hold that culture there, too. Mm-hmm. So I'll give a little credit to the veterans on that team and the leaders.
Yep.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to give your reaction to the Titans firing Jon Robinson yesterday. We go next to Jason in Nashville this morning. Hey, Jason.
Hey, good morning. Love y'all's show, man.
Appreciate it.
Let me just ask a question before I get into what I originally called for. Ramon, do you have an alias named Jerome?
Well, we all do. It's Jerome, Kyla, and Bill, man. I get called Jerome more than anything. I'm like, come on,
producer Josh
man.
Schaefer. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that's Josh Schaefer that picked up for you.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if that was like your alter ego, like whenever you get a wild hair or something, maybe he just turns into Jerome at that point.
No, the people just like to mess up my name. That's all that is.
Gotcha. Hey, well, you got my respect, brother. Hey, you Ramon to me. So
I appreciate that, Brody.
Hey, so here's what I was thinking, and I'm a Niners fan, man, and I kind of see similarities in what just happened right here, and I'm glad it didn't get to the point to where it did with the 49ers. I don't know if y'all remember, they used to have a GM named Trent Baalke, and he was over top of Jim Harbaugh when he was there coaching. And now Harbaugh turned our team around, took them to the Super Bowl. Of course, we lost against Ray Lewis and them, but the issue that I had was Harbaugh left and they didn't want to give a reason why, but you could tell that there was conflict between that GM and that coach. And so when it came down to it, you've seen how important and how vital that GM and that coach needs to be on the same page. And I don't think that Vrabel and Jon Robinson was completely on the same page, especially how he looked in the draft room and some of the quotes and his body language. You could tell that there was an issue. So I'm glad that Amy made that decision to move on from Jon Robinson versus letting this coach end up walking away, because, man, dude's a good coach, man. Those players buy into you. And they fight for him out there. That's one thing I can say. Yeah, they had the greatest players there, and some of the questions of the adding on to the team, but they buy into his system, and that's I think that's 90% of the battle right there. So I just wanted to hear what y'all had to say about that, man, because now that they got Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch together, you can tell there's a big difference in the culture. So, but y'all have a great day, man, and I hope y'all have a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
You too.
Great
Appreciate
call.
it.
Great call.
I think the point I will make about that, and Buck's reporting for A to Z Sports is what it is, saying that there was not any Mike Vrabel undermining Jon Robinson. But I will say this.
I don't think the caller exactly said that, though.
Right. I'll say this. When you talk about misalignment between the two and 49ers and past situations, you don't get to this point if Mike Vrabel and Jon Robinson are completely aligned.
True.
Fair?
Yeah, fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say this too. I guess at a certain point to where it worked and then didn't work. I think after that playoff loss, there may have been a conversation about, okay, what do we need to change, or how do we sustain this, or what's next? You know what I'm saying? As far as that goes, and it doesn't seem like there was much motivation. But I ain't gonna say not much motivation, because there is. I don't think there was much change or much communication about how to do it again. You can't just say, oh, we'll run it back. You know what I'm saying? With the same method. And they're following somewhat of the same method this year. Will to kind of come up short.
Yeah.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in this morning. When we come back, we reset the headlines from the last 24 hours. A crazy 24 hours as Jon Robinson is relieved of his duties as the Titans general manager. More of your phone calls at 615-737-1045. And Davd Boclair of SI.com coming up at 8:20. Much more reaction talking Titans this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 1045 The Zone.
8:01, good morning. I'm Jonathan Schaefer from the Superbook.com sports desk. The Titans fired general manager Jon Robinson yesterday. The dismissal occurred 2 days after the Titans were routed by the Philadelphia Eagles 35-10, which featured former Titans receiver A.J. Brown scoring 2 touchdowns. In her statement, Titans controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk said, "I believe there is more to be done and higher aspirations to be met." The Titans currently lead the AFC South with a 7-5 record and have won back-to-back division titles. Robinson and head coach Mike Vrabel signed contract extensions in February. Robinson had a winning record in all 6+ of his seasons in charge and became the second winningest general manager in franchise history. Ryan Cowden, the team's VP of player personnel, will oversee player personnel for the rest of the season. The LA Rams have claimed quarterback Baker Mayfield off of waivers. Major League Baseball, a new deal has been done. Breaking news, Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees have agreed to a 9-year, $360 million deal. Hoops tonight, Oklahoma City at Memphis in the association. 7 o'clock will be the tip. Eastern Kentucky at number 7 Tennessee at 6. Pittsburgh at Vanderbilt at 8 o'clock. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
And into the second half of the show goes on the Wednesday edition. In the wise words of one Lupe Fiasco. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Jonathan Schaefer makes the show happen. And no, he's not the second best producer in the world. No, he's not the third or fourth best. He is only known by one phrase.
The best producer in the world!
Of the world, Craig. The world.
And don't you ever forget it. 615-737-1045 is the number. We take your reaction to the Titans' move that sent shockwaves around the National Football League yesterday. Jon Robinson relieved of his duties as the Titans' general manager. We chat with Davd Boclair of SI.com as well coming up in 15 minutes. And Rhett Bryan joins us for his weekly visit with us at 9 o'clock this morning. Oh, I guess I'll live produce the show for a moment. I'm assuming we go scout meeting Thursday.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
Had to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we will. We'll certainly get some.
We'll have plenty of
Jacksonville.
reactions, yeah.
We'll get some Jacksonville nuggets from Rhett in hour 4 as well. But our scout meeting Thursday will be tomorrow. Diving into what Jacksonville does. 615-737-1045. The news yesterday about Jon Robinson comes just a couple of months after his extension. So 4 years of pay for him. Whew, still on the back end here. And I thought this was interesting. During his time as GM, that's right, Jon Robinson drafted 29 players. 2 of them made Pro Bowls. Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard. Since then, 3 of Jon Robinson's free agent and trade acquisitions have also made Pro Bowls. Including Ryan Tannehill, DeMarco Murray, and Brendan Trawick, special teamer. That
God, I remember Brendan.
I remember that too.
Wow.
Yeah. Only 2 of the 7 first-round selections Robinson made since taking over as GM in 2016 are on the current roster. And if you missed Ramon's rant on that earlier this morning, that, I think, guys, right now is the ultimate reason why Jon Robinson is no longer the general manager. I say rant with the utmost affection.
Oh, no. I know exactly what you mean. And it went to this effect, though. Like, the guys that you had have been dudes on other teams. Like, we spoke about Conklin getting injured. Well, Conklin played 9 games one year, and it was 100%, I think, the next year. For Cleveland, he's only had one iffy year, and he's been 100%, playing over 1,000 snaps. And then you also look at the fact of what AJ did and how he's at another place and Corey's at another place. Honestly, playing the exact same amount of snaps that he did here. And for what he got paid, whether you say it was out of market for the Titans or just a hot market in general, he's still producing and doing the exact same things he did here at a very just discounted price for wide receivers in this market. And then you look at the guys you brought in. Cunningham not doing what you want him to be, okay? And then the last 2 draft picks just not showing up much at all as far as first rounders go too. As same way as players get judged on their performance, coaches, GMs, front offices do also. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue right there when you really break it down. It's like, what, how, why, what happened?
Yeah.
That explains it right there.
You can't pay every single player, right? Let's make that clear.
Yeah. And you're not going to hit on every player.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you left some names out there too, Jonnu Smith. But tight ends were getting paid.
Yeah.
Right? And then you look at maybe a move that I think of that will be under Jon Robinson. Let's put this out here as a good move. Danico Autry.
Yeah.
That was a brilliant move in terms of a free agent move. Mm-hmm. But you are right on that point. You have to understand too, you can't pay everyone. However, you do need to have kind of a mentality where you got to stick with some of your guys more so than you don't.
But to that same point about sticking with your guys, if you go back to that 16 draft, starting with Conklin, and you keep him, you at least get an aspect of somebody that's able to carry on. One, he's a high draft pick, so there's that, okay? It's that leadership that you have there. You also, maybe we don't spend at 5 positions on offensive line. We spend at 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. And then we surround them with other good players. Like I said, I ain't got no problem with Aaron Brewer playing left guard. But if that means that Ben Jones is there and also Taylor Lewan is there, it's fine then. It's okay. And now you got a young guy and what's his name at right guard that's there too. Nate Davis. Okay, so pay Nate. Maybe get rid of Taylor if he's injured. You know what I'm saying? There is all of that plays into the balance of a roster. You can't allow those guys to go like that.
But on top of it, you cannot then miss out on the offensive linemen that you draft in the first and the second round. That attaches to everything else, and then it's like, boom.
Yeah, it highlights then.
Mm-hmm.
It's overly highlighted at that point. And then, of course, you mentioned Clowney. You mentioned the other guy that was signed with him, Vic Beasley. You mentioned him. You know what I'm saying?
Too,
and Julio that made you restructure. And we're judged. Everybody's judged. It's a game, but it's a big business inside of that game. And Miss Amy Adams-Strong showed us all the business side of it that I don't think anybody was expecting yesterday.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about the second contracts and the first-round picks. I'm okay going that strategy, right?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. Jack Conklin got overpaid to go to Cleveland. Jonnu Smith got overpaid to go to New England. I mean, heck, Adoree Jackson got overpaid to go to New York. It's not often that you get cut and then get a raise. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened with Adoree.
Yeah, you're not lying.
You did.
But he is actually
Adoree's doing a really
there.
good job now.
Yes.
Ultimately, though, if you're going to do that, you got to hit on your draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that and then miss on Isaiah Wilson because Isaiah Wilson's your replacement for Jack Conklin. So I'm okay going the direction of, you know what? We're going to bet on ourselves in the draft. We're going to bet on the fact that we get guys who can rise above the level of what they're getting paid on rookie contracts because we've got a heck of a head coach in Mike Vrabel who is going to coach up these young guys to a position where we can win now with young guys that aren't costing us a lot of money. And that way we can go out in free agency and get who we want. And we can pay our running back and a quarterback at the exact same time. But when you decide to go that direction, your draft picks are magnified that much more. And your mistakes in the draft are magnified tenfold. And that's exactly why we are in this position. They're in this position because they bet on themselves to get the next pick right. After Jack Conklin. What'd they do? They went and got Isaiah Wilson. They got the next pick right after Adoree Jackson. They went and got Caleb Farley. Get the next choice right after Roger Saffold. You bring in Dylan Radins, who can play guard or tackle. He hasn't really stepped up in that position. And now you're saying, all right, guys, at this point, you have to bet on a different philosophy when it comes to talent evaluation and the way you're spending your money or not spending your money in order to keep these guys around.
And they said this on 2 Pros and a Cup of Joe this morning. I thought it was interesting. And this is still to be played out with Treylon Burks, so I'm not going to compare this completely yet. But, they said you look at a situation where the Vikings and Bills made that trade where they traded away Stephon Diggs and they brought in the draft Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And it worked out perfectly, right? Could have worked out better for each side. But that does not happen often. That kind of thing does not happen often. And, you're kind of rolling the dice in a situation like that, and you look at that as kind of being similar to the situation that happened with AJ and then taking Traylon. But Traylon still has time to show that he can be that guy. But right now, it's magnified because of the situation.
And I won't knock Traylon for anything that's in correlation to AJ or anything else. He is a blank slate of what his career needs to be. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Traylon looks like one of the success stories.
He just can't stay healthy right now, and the concussion is not his fault.
No, it's not his friend this week.
615-737-1045, the number. Andrew up next on the phone lines. Good morning, Andrew.
Morning, Andrew.
Yes, you guys are hitting the nail right on the head, especially Ramon. I said this all day yesterday that, in my opinion, we all here in Nashville already understood what happened with A.J. Brown. But when you have the announcers on national TV exposing the business mindset of the Titans with the A.J. Brown trade, making fun of it and questioning it on national TV, and then you have A.J. Brown homegrown, just what he did as a receiver to our defense. Just made them look like little kids out there, catching the ball on them like a grown man playing with little league kids. I mean, we just got exposed, and I think behind that, they had no choice but to go ahead and pull the trigger now. I think they should have did that a long time ago. And, in fact, I'm shocked in a way because I expected the offensive coordinator to go first. But after that, I'll digress. But I think that it was needed, and it really happened because we got exposed on national TV. And as an owner, she had to be embarrassed at what A.J. Brown did to us. I digress.
My brother, good call.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate the call. Yeah, the timing of it certainly tells you that it was a bad place to be shown up by basically the perfect example of why you have not succeeded.
Can I ask you guys a question, too, in this? Did we all realize how big of a player AJ was? As far as like seeing him up close and personal to the way that the national – you remember when we had Aton on last week, remember?
Let's be clear about this. He's getting more national attention because he went to Philly.
Well, yeah.
We've known all along.
We've known.
The First Takes and Undisputeds of the world are talking about him because he plays for a name brand of the NFL. But I don't think anyone here is surprised to see the success that he's having.
Yeah.
I think we knew he was a top 10 wide receiver in two-tone blue.
You know, sometimes you don't appreciate what's in front of you conversation that people always have. I'm just like, he was the guy. And it ain't the only situation, but that's the most
That's why Titans
one.
fans were so mad.
Yeah.
Because they knew he was the guy.
Yeah.
615-737-1045. More of your reaction as Hour 3 continues. But next, we talk with Davd Boclair of SI.com and get his thoughts on why now is the best time, or why now is the best time in the mind of Amy Adams Strunk to fire Jon Robinson. Davd Boclair with us next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of the time we homeowners pretend we don't see the warning signs. We are afraid of what we're going to hear. This is especially true with waterproofing and foundation repair. It could be something big that needs to be fixed, or it could be a small problem now that'll become bigger later, or it may be nothing at all. In these moments, you want a peace of mind, and that's when you need United Structural Systems. With USS, you get problem solvers, experts to educate you and help you understand what's happening with your home. USS will provide an honest diagnosis and stand by their work and warranties. And USS is based right here in Middle Tennessee and is a member of our community. So when it comes to something as important as your home, USS is the company who cares and the company you can trust. USS serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. You can find them online at USSTN.com or call them at 615-227-2275. We guarantee our best. Call USS.
Ramon, Kayla, and Will is powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors right here on 104.5 The Zone. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. As we go back to the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline, continuing our Reaction Wednesday on the Titans releasing General Manager Jon Robinson. And we hear from our friend Davd Boclair of SI.com. Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm good. How's everybody there this morning?
Oh, we're great. It is a day that we did not expect to turn into this kind of show, that's for sure. Why now, David, for Jon Robinson to be let go by Amy Adams Strunk? Does the timing of this move surprise you at all?
Yeah, I mean, in season, it absolutely does surprise me. And I mean, let's be honest, there's reasons for concern about Jon Robinson's job performance, right? I mean, outside of Christian Fulton, you've gotten very little from the 2020 and 2021 draft classes. You know, the Isaiah Wilson thing was a debacle. Julio Jones didn't work out the way you wanted. Jadeveon Clowney didn't work out the way you wanted. I mean, you can go down the list. They're all pretty obvious. But you can also look at Jon Robinson's record. And no losing seasons and 4 playoff berths in the last 5 years. It's going to be 5 out of 6. They're going to win their 3rd straight division title, so on and so on. And you would say, well, clearly this guy deserves the opportunity to fix whatever problems he's created. So then you start to say, okay, what is at issue here with the timing? And I can't believe that it's coincidental that this happens 2 days after they go to Philadelphia and A.J. Brown does the things that A.J. Brown used to do for this team. I mean, you look at Amy Adams Strunk's track record as owner, which is relatively short, right? Or as controlling owner, it goes back to 2015. But she does not like to be embarrassed. And 7 games into the 2015 season, the Titans go to Houston. Oh, by the way, that's her hometown, and they get beat 20-6. Their quarterback, Zach Mettenberger, gets sacked 7 times, gets hit 16 times. They just looked completely non-competitive that day. And the next day, head coach Ken Wisenhunt gets fired. You go ahead to the 2016 season. 4 weeks into that one, you go back down to Houston, Amy Adams Strunk's hometown. They lose a game to the Texans when they give up a punt return for a touchdown late in the 4th quarter in a game that they'd already had a punt blocked that a referee's call bailed them out on. And earlier in the 2nd quarter, they stopped Houston on a 4th and 23, forced them to punt, but they had 12 men on the field. The extra 5 yards allows Houston to kick a field goal and put 3 points on the board there. The day after that, Mike Mularkey is told, you need to fire special teams coach Bobby April. This is fairly consistent with what we've seen from Amy Adams Strunk. And everybody in the organization likes to refer to her as Miss Amy, kind of this team mom sort of persona or whatnot, which I think does her a real disservice, right? She's really accomplished in business. It's clear she has very strong opinions about what she wants and expects from the people who work for her, and if she's not getting what she wants, she is not afraid to make decisions that are uncomfortable.
And David, that was kind of the initial reaction I had too coming out of this from Amy Adams Strunk perspective. Is it just how angry do you feel like she would have had to be to make this move in the middle of the season, right?
I think absolutely that, and let's say this, this is not probably, well, certainly not the huge time of the year for a general manager. That free agency, the draft, all that's when a general manager makes their bones. But the interesting part about this particular decision too, Jon Robinson is a little different than any GM I've ever seen in that, he's in the middle of practices. He runs a drill here and there. He grabs pads and works with linemen and does that sort of thing. Most GMs, they're either watching from their office or they're on the sideline, but they keep a sort of a distance from the players. These guys, these Titans, they see Jon Robinson every day. They interact with him. They talk with him. They hug him. They did all these sorts of things. So this is, for this particular team and this particular GM to make this move in the season, I think I think the risk is greater in terms of what it might mean in the locker room than it would for a lot of other teams and GMs.
Bulky, I'll ask this question in a position of just ultimate respect on how I'll say this, but with how he did this job, with the way you described him being in the middle of drills, was he too close emotionally to this team, being from this state, wanting to be the GM and all those types of things involved in it? Because I've never met any GM to hold a pad and at a practice or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah, far be it from me, Ramon, to say that he was wrong to do that.
Right.
It struck me as, it always struck me as odd and sort of out of place, and maybe you wonder, did the assistant coaches or Mike Vrabel, did that ever make them feel uncomfortable? I don't know, but I think Jon Robinson was being true to himself, and that's how he felt. He needed to be involved, and how he could have a handle on what was going on with the team. So, here's where we are. And I say it all the time, players hate distractions. And this is now going to be a distraction for them, because they're going to be asked about it today. They're going to be asked about it tomorrow. I'm sure they're talking about it in their meeting rooms and in their, and in the locker room amongst themselves. This is something that takes their attention away from what's directly in front of them, and from that perspective, it is a bit of a risky move by Amy Adams Strunk.
I never really kept up with like the numbers that or transactions that go throughout a roster every year, but it was always documented last year, the Titans going through 90+ players, and it seemed like the trend was happening again this year. Do you think the idea of not being familiar with who's in your locker room played a part in it too, in the aspect of find us guys that's going to stick? As far instead of churning the roster being the tempo for this team?
Yeah, I don't know that's a good question. I mean, I would say the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
That, if this team was 4-8 right now and floundering, then you say, okay, well, maybe that didn't work, and you need to do something different. But I think I think Jon Robinson was always sort of he was not a GM who would sit around and wait for things to happen. He didn't wait for a guy to get healthy. He didn't wait for a guy to see if a guy would drop down the draft board to him. When he saw something that needed to be addressed personnel wise, he made a move. He would trade to move up the draft board. He would go out and sign somebody off a practice squad or do whatever. I mean, I don't think there's any question he was very proactive in the role, and again, the results speak for themselves. Now, I'm sure if you're in the owner's suite, you're sitting there thinking, well, why is it that we've gotten worse at right tackle every year for the last 3 years now? And why didn't we have a better option to replace Roger Saffold? I mean, Aaron Brewer's, doing what he can, but those are two completely different players. And like I said, we spent all this money and draft picks to get Julio Jones, and that didn't work out. I mean, there are these. It's a fascinating tenure he had here, because he had such great successes. When you talk about a Jeffrey Simmons to down to some of the undrafted players he's found, and he's had these huge misses too. It really was a remarkable tenure that way.
Okay, do you also think there was just a disconnect in terms of how they wanted to do things? And I'm talking in terms of Mike Vrabel and Jon Robinson, two guys that kind of are headstrong in their own ways in a lot of ways. When it came down to it, I'm not saying that ultimately was the reason why Amy made her choice, but how much do you think that played into it? And now how do you bring a guy in there that's kind of on the same page as Mike Vrabel?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, I am convinced there's no way you can tell me that there haven't been times over the last couple of years where Mike Vrabel didn't go into Jon Robinson's office, bang on the desk and say, you have to get me better than Cody Hollister and Nick Westbrook-Akina and what we have at wide receiver. You have to get me somebody better at this position. What are we doing here? But that's natural for I think any coach and that is going to happen. What I'm curious about, and what I'm sure we'll probably never know, because Mike Vrabel's going to say the right things publicly, and Amy Adams-Strunk doesn't like to be out in front of the public. She's not going to answer these questions. But did that discussion ever spill over into the owner's office to where she felt like she had to, at some point, make a choice between those two guys? Because you can go back 20 years ago. Jeff Fisher and Floyd Reese had a really, really good working relationship until they started butting heads eventually, and it was hilarious. Like, no press release ever came out. I think it was like 2002, 2003, whatever it was. But all of a sudden, the media guide comes out one year, and you see Floyd Reese has a new title. He's no longer general manager. He's now executive vice president / general manager. Wow. And then the next year, there's no press release again, but the media guide comes out, and Jeff Fisher all of a sudden is executive vice president, head coach. Like these guys clearly had an eye on each other and trying to make sure, okay, he doesn't have authority over me, I don't have authority over him, that kind of thing. And I think that's just a dynamic that develops. Whether that happened with Jon Robinson and Mike Vrabel over the last couple of years, I don't know, and it'll be interesting. Ryan Cowden, who's now the interim GM, for example, this is a guy who clearly wants to be a GM. Interviewed for jobs in with the Giants and Pittsburgh last year, with Washington the year before that, with Carolina in 2018. I mean, he wants to be a GM. If he and Mike Vrabel work really, really well together over the next 6-8 weeks, whatever it is, can Mike Vrabel go to Amy and say, yeah, I like this guy, let's keep him? Will that carry any sway? I don't know. These are things we're just going to have to see how they play out.
We see it with Bill Belichick in New England. Now, possibly, do you see Vrabel having a majority of control of that 53-man roster, or at least a big say?
I don't. I mean,
okay.
I think my sense of Mike Vrabel is that he's not a coach who's looking for that sort of power. And I say that based on, how many times have we heard him after Tuesday of workouts? Every team brings in players on Tuesday for workouts, and then maybe you sign one or two here or there. And when you ask Vrabel, well, what did you like about this guy? He has almost nothing to say, and it's like, well, he did what we wanted to see. We brought him in. I don't think he's hugely involved in every single player evaluation, all that, that he feels like that. I think he is a coach who wants to coach. He's a teacher at heart, those sorts of things. But he wants to have a say. I think he wants to be able to go to his GM and say, I need a guy who can do this.
Sure.
Get me somebody like that. And I think that's how they operated. He and Jon Robinson operated together, and I think for the most part it worked pretty well. I don't know that he felt like he wasn't involved in the process where he needs to be more involved. I mean, that's just my guess, but I could be wrong about that. But I sense that he wants to focus his energy on coaching and not being a GM, but he wants to be able to trust the guy who is the GM in making those decisions.
Davd Boclair with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. David, much has been made about the Titans' lack of an analytics department. At ESPN, Seth Walder writing earlier this year, Titans are the only team in the NFL to not have someone on staff whose specific job title it is to work in analytics. Do you feel like this is a moment for the Titans to invest more heavily in that by hiring somebody else, or is the Titans' way just kind of the Titans' way at this point as long as Mike Vrabel's here?
Yeah, it's not like the Titans are blind to analytics or that they don't take them into account. John Stryker, who Vrabel affectionately refers to as Stretch all the time. Mm-hmm. He's the guy that does that, is most involved with that, and I get the sense that Mike Vrabel is very happy with the amount and the quality of information he gets in terms of how it influences his decision making. So I wouldn't guess that would be a big change now. Maybe the next general manager, if it's somebody from outside comes in here, has different ideas, may go ahead and do something like that. But I don't see that's a big thing a front burner issue for this team right now.
David, how do you feel like this affects Jeffrey Simmons' negotiations with the Titans? Because surely an interim general manager won't have the authority to give him a big number before the season's over, right?
Well, that's a good question. You wonder about the quality of negotiations up to this point. I would think as far as Jeffrey Simmons goes that whatever it takes to get that guy signed, and I think Vin Marino is sort of the key guy in this in terms of determining a number and what the team can afford and how it's going to affect the salary cap in 2023 and beyond that. So I think Vin becomes a really huge part in that, because he's going to have to be the guy who says, okay, if we pay him X amount, then that's going to cost us money from this spot or this spot. If we go even higher, then it's going to cost us from over here, and everybody's just going to have to make that decision, like what they're willing to do. But he's the one who's going to paint the picture, sort of set the parameters, and then the general manager will have to negotiate that into existence, whoever it is, whether it's an interim. But I mean the job, I suspect, will be filled by late January at the latest, and then that gives almost 2 months going into free agency for whoever the new GM is to get that deal done.
Davd Boclair has been our guest. At Boclair Sports on Twitter is where you can find him, covering the Titans on the Fan Nation Network on SI.com. David, appreciate the time as always on a busy day.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. Everybody take care.
Thanks,
Absolutely. Davd Boclair with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And next, more of your reaction on the phones at 615-737-1045. And one comment specifically David made that I think is one you don't often hear about Amy Adams-Strunk, but is especially appropriate right now, that we'll highlight next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 1045 The Zone.
Change is coming, and you need to be prepared. Hey, this is Ramon Falston. Did you know that new regulations are coming soon that could increase the price of replacing your older HVAC system by over 20%? That's why you need to act now and get that older system replaced by my friends at Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. They offer 18 months with no payments, meaning you can lock in today's price and not have to pay until spring of 2024, which means you get through the holiday season, New Year's, and everything. Yes, with cash in your pocket. Or you can get up to $1,500 off a new HVAC system. Now, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling is always backed by 10-year parts and labor warranties on York products. And Spring Hill Heating and Cooling is also a York certified comfort expert company. And if you're in need of repair work, they offer free service calls with their repairs, plus low monthly payments on those repairs. They are the heating and cooling company that can take care of all of your HVAC needs. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, available anytime at springhillac.com.
It's Titans Ticket Thursday presented by Bullseye. Listen all day tomorrow for your chance to win Titans versus Jags tickets. That also includes 2 tickets to the Titans VIP tailgate at the Bridge Building, thanks to Bullseye Event Group. For more info, visit 1045thezone.com/contest.
It's our own Kayla and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, right here at 1045 The Zone. Pro Football Talk tweeting out 1 minute ago, Mike Florio writing his thoughts on the Jon Robinson and Titans situation. And his tweet says, with Jon Robinson out, Coach Mike Vrabel becomes the de facto chief of football operations in Tennessee. That's Mike Florio as of about 5 minutes ago on ProFootballTalk.com.
Was that his opinion or just?
I'm reading through the article for the first time right now. But that just essentially says there's been no reporting aimed at pushing back against the perception that A.J. Brown's performance served as the catalyst of a long-standing power struggle and philosophical divide between Robinson and Mike Vrabel. And Mike Florio goes on to write about the displeasure that A.J. Brown's trade caused Mike Vrabel to show in the moment. Mike Florio writing, there were signs of disagreement well before the Titans decided to trade Brown for a first-round pick. But the Titans traded away a 2022 second and a 2023 fourth for Julio Jones. GM Jon Robinson was the one who did the press conference and media appearances. Vrabel didn't say a word.
He did not.
Is what Mike Florio writes. I don't really think that has as much to do with the fact that that's just not the way the order of operations kind of works here.
No, but it was kind of always odd, like seeing Julio here and just the disconnect. Like, in terms of, I just felt like something was off, and you wonder, like, was it just one person's decision ultimately, and the other person maybe didn't want that?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I did always feel like something was a little off with that situation.
In those moments and that decision being made, I get it. Julio is a guy or as a weapon that you thought you could use, and this team was looking for a guy that was going to be a bigger weapon for AJ at the time, considering he was in and out of the lineup a lot that year, leading up to it. But you do kind of look at it and say, where else could this money have been spent? We say all this in hindsight, right? But if you do mention that, at least the optics side of what Florio is saying, right, Will, Kayla, listeners, you kind of say to yourself, well, where is the cosign from the coach? We can all speculate this after the fact, and now if he's the head honcho when it comes down to decision-making, it perceives it to be true, right? But this is also what Vrabel got to realize walking into this role. You're dealing with a different monster as far as having control like this, too. You either better have a real good staff of trust, of judgment, of decision-making when it comes down to being that guy that got to wear both hats. Because one thing you're looking at is Belichick and New England, who does these things, too. Look, if it goes bad, it's bad, and there's only one person to point the finger at, and that's you. So if he does assume this, or even if he has a say-so in the guy that he picks out moving forward, those are heavy hats to wear, man, when you're really dealing with one of 32 franchises that everybody love watching week in and week out.
It's interesting, though. I don't read much into the fact that Mike Vrabel didn't talk to the media when Julio Jones was traded for. But Mike Florio does write, Vrabel likely did not want Julio Jones, and to no surprise, he didn't do much for the Titans before Tennessee released him after one season. I don't know. There's probably some truth to that. I think this is perceptive, though, from Mike Florio in writing the fact that it wasn't just A.J. Brown that I think started some of the disagreement between Vrabel and Robinson.
But I think if you look at that, though, we're speaking about that guy just in particular and what's required of people that play that position here. Julio ain't no big-time blocking wide receiver.
No, of course not.
Julio's a go-getter. And Julio's issue was he got to block. You remember that being the case is Robert Woods, what you got to do? You got to block.
Yeah.
Traylon, what do you got to do to get him? You got to block. Chig, why ain't Chig on the field? Chig got to block. Wide receivers don't sign up to play blocking wide receivers. I will say that in the sense of personnel versus what we actually do. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of what Julio was. I ain't going to lie. I loved it. I love the idea.
At the time.
You feel me? I can say that here. You know what I'm saying?
Of course. Yank is in Smyrna and up next on the phone lines where you can join us at 615-737-1045. What's going on, Yank?
What's up, gang? Y'all good?
We're good.
Hey.
How you?
I'm good, man. I'm just going to say what I got to say. Let y'all have the floor. Listen, man. Y'all can't sweep under the rug because I listen regularly. I'm surprised your boy Ty Downing is not in the fire with this whole situation because every time we lose, we always talk about who? Ty Downing,
yeah.
and Jon Robinson. Jon Robinson not as much. And I was a little surprised he left because I was like, man, Jon Robinson left. First thing I thought about was who? Ty Downing. And my second point, I'm going to let y'all do what y'all do. I don't think Verbal wants complete control like a DM. I mean, like your manager or whatnot.
GM, yeah.
But I think he just wants to say so in who he got on his team. I mean, he just wants a little bit of control.
Yeah.
So
Thanks, Yank. Appreciate the call. I mean, I honestly disagree. I think Mike Vrabel is aiming for a Belichickian level of power.
We've got a lot of mixed reviews on this, too,
We have.
throughout the show, whether it be guests or viewers or listeners, I should say. I'm going to be interested to see how this comes about because I kind of am on the side of Will on this.
And by the way, too, I'll say this. I'm on the Ty Downing train as far as that goes, right? But I'll say
still
it seems.
Wait, what train going where?
No. Let me explain this a little bit too. I think the issue was what Vrabel kind of sees or what the complaint can be about the stagnant aspect of what this offense is or the style in which you play is it can be pointed to personnel. It can also be pointed to as far as neglect when it comes down to the way Ty Downing calls plays too. Both can be in the same boat. Who's to say if one hammer falls, the other one won't either when it comes down to Ty Downing? I'll say this. Coaches look after one. I can't hammer that down enough. They look out for one another when you got your guy. Has Todd been deficient in some areas? Yeah. Has Todd also been dealt a hand of personnel that you kind of question a little bit? Yeah. Both of them can be saving points for a guy like Todd Downing. It's clear Vrabel, that's his dude. You got a DUI and you get no suspension. He said, we're going to let the system work itself out. To me, whether you like Todd Downing or not, he's put in a position where the roster isn't clearly what Vrabel wanted to be. It seems to me, my opinion. And then you say, go make something out of nothing. And this is what you're faced with. The consistency of whether he calling plays right or wrong, and I challenge him in a sense to say, look, give Derek more room to run. Derek is just because you put him 8 yards behind Tannehill doesn't mean he have enough room to run if he's going straight downhill into the A-gap to A-gap.
Right.
There's been almost no pulling, no pin and pull.
Yeah.
No misdirection with Derek.
And I think that's the point.
That's neglect.
It doesn't have to just be Jon Robinson. That was basically made the point. Jon Robinson's firing, I think a lot of people have said, probably saves Todd Downing because there's a different scapegoat. We can kind of walk and chew gum at the same time, so to speak, and say that there needs to be improvement in multiple areas.
There's so much. Yeah, okay. I like that.
We got to go to break. And after this, the final hour of the show, 4's up around Middle Tennessee. Rhett Bryan stops by, the executive producer of Titans Radio. We'll talk some Titans Jags. We'll get his thoughts on the news of the day next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
In stock inventory is back at Two Rivers Ford. The truckloads of vehicles, yes, if you've been on social media, you've seen them post them. The 18-wheelers full of trailers of just new cars, okay? They've made it past the supply chain kings and onto Two Rivers Ford lot, finally. I'm talking about F-150s, Explorers, Edges, Escape. Two Rivers has all of them in every color and variety with trim levels and options. And don't forget, Two Rivers Ford sell all non-specialty new Fords below MSRP. So you're going to get get a great price. And when it comes to financing, Two Rivers is offering great finance rates this month starting at just 2.9%. Go ask somebody else what their interest rate is. I bet it ain't 2.9%. Also, I always like to mention that when you do business with Two Rivers Ford, you're doing business with a local dealer that's been around since 1983 with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. These are great people, and you'll be in great hands when you deal with them. Just look at their Google reviews. So get online at tworiversford.com or call them at 1-800-900-1000 or go see their non-commissioned sales team in Mount Juliet, just 7 miles east of BNA Airport. But whatever you do, do it fast before the stock inventory is gone. Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people.
9:01, good morning. I'm Jonathan Schaefer from the Superbook.com sports desk. The Titans fired general manager Jon Robinson yesterday. The dismissal occurred 2 days after the Titans were routed by the Eagles 35-10, in which former Titans receiver A.J. Brown had 2 touchdowns. In her statement, Titans controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk said, "I believe there's more to be done and higher aspirations to be met." Titans currently lead the AFC South with a 7-5 record and have won back-to-back division titles. Robinson and head coach Mike Vrabel signed contract extensions in February. Robinson had a winning record in all 6+ of his seasons in charge and became the second winningest general manager in franchise history. Ryan Cowden, the team's VP of player personnel, will oversee player personnel for the rest of the season. The LA Rams have claimed quarterback Baker Mayfield off of waivers. Major League Baseball Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees have agreed to a 9-year, $360 million deal. To the association, Oklahoma City at Memphis, 7 o'clock will be the tip tonight. College basketball, men's style, Eastern Kentucky at number 7, Tennessee. That'll be a 6 o'clock tip. Pittsburgh's at Vanderbilt at an 8 o'clock tip. Wrong Foundation Repair and Waterproofing needs. Visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
And the show goes on for 60 more minutes on the Wednesday edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Tons of reaction to the fallout that shook the NFL world yesterday. Jon Robinson relieved of his duties as Tennessee Titans general manager. We continue that conversation for another hour before Lucas Panzica and Buck Rising take over after us. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Never call him the second best producer in the world. Only call him the best producer in the world. His name is Jonathan Schaefer.
The best producer in the world!
Of the world. And Rhett Bryan, the executive producer of Titans Radio, joins us this morning. Good morning, Rhett.
Good morning, everyone. How are we?
Good.
Just a
Well,
little bit
not
to talk
great,
about.
but good.
Well, it's little shock waves there. More than just a little.
A toy field we will never forget. That's for sure. Because first of all, thank you to all of you that stopped by and brought toys yesterday.
Yes.
I saw it was a record amount of toys that we had
It
filling up
basically
toy field
doubled up.
twice. Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
That was awesome.
But it was
Wow.
quite an eventful day as soon as we left. And I was telling some of our teammates in the building working for the other stations, said usually we're the first to react to every game and news, and now we are the last ones to react. But Rhett, what was your initial reaction yesterday to the news of Jon Robinson being let go?
I think it was shock like everyone else, and if for no other reason, the timing. It's much more common for head coaches and coordinators to get popped in the middle of a season, but that's usually when a season is going really bad. Mm-hmm. This team's 7-5 and they have a 3-game lead in their division, and so I was like, do what? But I think it's pretty clear that Amy Adams Strunk had seen things accumulate and decided to make a change. I don't think, personally, in my opinion, I do not believe it's just the A.J. Brown trade. It's just, the result of last Sunday's game. It's a cumulative effect because she just strikes me as someone that does not make hasty decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But when she makes up her mind, she makes up her mind. So here we are. And now I'll say this. The guy that's in charge the rest of the year, Ryan Cowden, has a long resume. He has 20-plus years in the NFL. He had 16 years of experience before he ever came here with Carolina Panthers, working with Marty Herney. So he knows how all this stuff works. So for, those that are interested in, well, what's the operational day-to-day, sir, first of all, you've got a guy who's capable of doing all of those duties because he's been in that circle for a long time. He's interviewed for multiple general manager jobs, the Steelers, the Washington Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's been around the block here and good guy, and already made a flurry of moves yesterday. So he knows how this stuff is supposed to work, and so the Titans are in capable hands until they do a full-blown search sometime in January, I guess.
And I want to highlight, too, something Davd Boclair said. We teased this going into the last segment and didn't have time to get to it, but Davd Boclair made the comment that the team mom sentiment kind of does Amy Adams-Strunk a disservice. So the people that kind of call her team mom Amy and Miss Amy, and there's this certain kind of connotation with that. And Rhett, as you know, Amy Adams-Strunk is extremely involved, and she is always willing to make a very tough decision, even when things are already going okay, if she thinks this can go from good to great.
Well, let me say this. First of all, I understand the sentiment behind the whole team mom stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it's not – I don't like that. Let me just say that publicly. I'm not a fan of that because it is, to a point, disrespectful. She is one of a handful of owners, female owners in the National Football League. And listen, her dad would be extremely proud of what she has done with his beloved franchise if he were to see it here today, because they're one of two teams with 6 consecutive winning seasons. They won back-to-back division championships. They're on track to win a third, multiple playoff appearances in a time where she saved the franchise. Mm-hmm. She literally did. And, yeah, I can't imagine how hard this was for her because she welcomed Jon Robinson into this, and Jon Robinson did his part to help get this team out of the doldrums. And so I can imagine she had no delight in telling him he had been relieved of his duties, and that it was painstaking to come to that decision because she trusted him with a lot of things with the franchise, and but she felt like it was a time for a change. I mean, everyone said it yesterday, and they were right. Don't forget, after the playoff win, with Mike Mularkey, she decided to make a change and went with Mike Vrabel, and that has worked out very well. So the thing that she's like the team mom or whatever, look, she's an owner in the National Football League and is a very savvy and smart business lady. She's more than just team mom, if you want to call her that. So, just thinking about all this, I mean, she has to make some difficult decisions. I have no doubt that this was one of them.
When coaches get let go, there's usually a jolt, a reset, a relief. Most times in the locker room, it's like, oh, yeah, we kind of knew this one. This one was so abrupt, Rhett, in the sense that I know I didn't know, and I don't think you knew. Nobody really knew.
No, I don't think so.
Where's the cultural reset as far as GM's concerned? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
what's the move when you make a move like this?
Well, I mean, clearly, again, Ryan Cowden is director of player personnel and is very capable of doing the day-to-day operations for the last 5 games of the regular season and whatever happens beyond. Until they figure out what direction they're going with the next person and Jon Robinson's successor. So, all of the scouting department is still doing its due diligence as college football is winding down. And, but yeah, they're going to have to, and I heard Davd Boclair last hour, and I would agree with him that they would be making a decision on his replacement pretty soon because the Senior Bowl is right there towards the end of January, early part of February, and obviously the combine, personal workouts, the draft, all of that stuff is coming, and free agency on top of that. So they're going to have somebody in place to be able to pivot and do those things. And the other thing I thought it was interesting Davd Boclair said was talking about Vin Marino, the cap manager, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be heavily relied upon in this because there's tough decisions to make upcoming when you get into the 2023 fiscal year. As there is every year. I mean, there's 30% roster turnover every year, and the Titans have been a little above that in some cases, just depending on how contracts are laid out. So, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, but right now it's day-to-day operations in watching the waiver wire, looking at the roster itself, and making the moves like was made yesterday with Caleb Shudak added to the practice squad, and a couple of guys being jettisoned from the roster, a couple of guys being added to the practice squad roster. So, there's stuff that still has to be made because this team is still, 77 players they've used so far this year. So there's stuff to be done, and there's games to be won, and it starts with Jacksonville Sunday.
Right. I think you were spot on as far as, Miss Amy goes, simply because I look up her profile, and she's an avid equestrian and fox hunter, fox chaser. That's pretty bad right there, Rhett. You ever chase a fox?
She is nobody's fool, man. I'm telling you, and she's a really kind, sweet lady, but I wouldn't mess with her.
Yeah,
I mean, she's, you can't just be in a position like that and, wear your heart on your sleeve. You've got to be able to make some very difficult decisions. But she loves horses.
Yeah.
And but that Texas tough now.
I see.
You got to be careful with that.
I told y'all about the time a fox ran up on me.
What?
You ran away?
No, legit.
What did the fox say?
Yeah.
There's the dad joke.
Well done.
That's good.
I pulled in my driveway, and in my neighbor's driveway, a little bit up the hill, I'm like, what? No, it ain't no coyote. I'm like, it's a look like furry. Like, it was a pretty little animal.
Yes.
Turned out to be a friggin' fox.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I see it in the daytime running around the neighborhood, right? And I'm like, I knew I wasn't, tripping. The fox really just sat down and was like, hey, big fella, what you doing, man? It's my hours. That's what Miss Amy do. They call it fox catching, not hunting. Because if they go in a hole, you leave them alone, apparently. Yeah.
Well, there's a technique to it.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot to it. Absolutely.
You go years without catching the fox.
Those things, instead of they're not the ones who knocks, they're the ones who fox.
And you go years sometimes without getting a world championship. So there's the correlation.
Yeah. That's a big conversation to have there, Rhett.
And I think that's what all of this is about.
Yeah.
She feels like she has her head coach, but the personnel decisions are not what they should be. I mean, it was in her statement that, things were not being met with aspirations. And, there is no ceiling. She wants more. And that ends with a Lombardi trophy.
I got a question for you after the break, if you don't mind, man.
You got, man, whatever you got, lay it on me.
Are we already at the break?
I just like to be polite.
Man, I'm asking the questions when we get back here.
That's right. I know. I do
What's
one
up
quick.
here, fellas?
Rock, paper, scissors for us?
Share with your teammates,
We're talking
Ramon.
about strong women. Let's go.
I'm not even going to fight that battle. You win.
Get back in your foxhole, man.
In Ramon's defense, it's the way the conversation went.
No, I know.
Everybody's going to get some questions. I'm right here.
Man, I got to speak
That's
in here.
my dog right there. See?
I don't
we
care.
We stick together, too,
I'm
man.
a dog over here.
You are a dog over
there.
I'm
a dog.
And you can get as many questions as you'd like as we can.
I just didn't know we were already at the break, so.
Time flies when you're talking about general managers being released in the middle of the season. That's the way it is.
Woo. And next, we continue the conversation with the long-term portion of what is next for the Titans, but also the short-term, because you've got a pretty big game in Nissan Stadium on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC South. That's next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will with Rhett Bryan in Hour 4 on 104.5 The Zone.
Window Nation is doing the impossible. You're probably saying, Ramon, what's impossible in this climate? Well, let me tell you this. Despite the fact that costs are up, inflation is up, and rates are rising, Window Nation is giving you, yes, you, 0% interest for 5 full years on new windows. That's no interest payments for 60 months, in addition to 2 windows free for every 2 you buy. Right now, we've had a variation of this weather. We've had cold, we've had lightly warm, today is super rainy. Your windows are going through it, and if they're sticking, drafty, leaking today, or sweating, keeping the climate inside of your house just weird, guess what? It's time for you to visit windownation.com, where you can save up to 30% on your heating bill and increase the value of your home. Again, the longer you have the older drafty windows, the more money you're wasting on your heating bills. Over time, Window Nation has saved their customers over $60 million in energy bill, okay? And they also have an average installer has over 16 years of experience with over 20,000 windows installed. Again, here's the offer for you. Buy 2 windows and get 2 windows free on any style window from Window Nation. There is actually no limit. You may plus make no payments and make no down payments, or no payments and no interest until 2025. Save thousands on your new windows and your energy bills, all while upgrading the look and feel of your home. The number to reach them is 866-90-NATION, or you can go to windownation.com. Again, 866-90-NATION, or visit windownation.com.
Wednesday edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, a 104.5 The Zone. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Jonathan Schaefer, our producer, and Rhett Bryan in studio with us. And we give the floor to Kayla Anderson as we continue the conversation with Ramon Foster and Rhett Bryan.
So I actually wanted to turn the page a little bit since we haven't been able to have these discussions today because there's actually a game to play.
There sure is.
On
it's
Sunday.
A big one.
And an AFC South division opponent. Yep. Like, how do you transfer as a player kind of the mindset of going into this game and knowing, I think if one win against the Jags, it gets them even closer to taking the division?
Yeah, their magic number is 3.
Okay.
And so that would, get you ever closer for sure. First of all, and Ramon would be able to speak way better than this on that particular question, but honestly, I don't know that the players would count that as a huge distraction because it's not a coaching change.
Yeah.
And I'm not minimizing what happened. It's major news, but I think that is enough removed. It's still in the building, but it's not like in their immediate space. I think they're just trying to go do what they need. And here's the other part of it. Mike Vrabel will have them dialed in and ready to go.
Sure.
Because he's usually really good at that part of it. But I can certainly understand why you'd ask that. And it's, because if you're a player that was brought in as a free agent, you're like, oh, gosh, that guy brought me in, and now there's going to be a change, and there's a different guy. But I don't think you can get in that mindset with 5 games to go. You've got business to take care of now, regardless.
I would also think, too, just to add to that, Kayla, is, look, that the game itself is going to take you away from any kind of madness you have anyway. The game plan sticks the same. I think Coach Vrabel will probably address it. Initial team meeting, it is what it is. We got a game to win, and let's roll. Like it has to be that way because everything structurally that they know day to day is still in place.
Yeah.
Cleave and leave.
So with Trevor Lawrence playing some pretty good football, I know he got a little bit beat up in the last game, but all indications point to him playing. What have you seen out of him, Rhett, that's impressed you in terms of last year? I think kind of struggled to find his true self under Urban Meyer. I think a lot of people did. A lot of players did. What have you liked about him? This season.
The biggest thing with him is decision making because you look at his, and you're right. I think he had an awkward. He was being brought down in the grasp of a tackler, and his left foot was kind of stayed in the ground and. There was an awkward twist there, and they thought that maybe he had a foot or an ankle or whatever. Apparently, medically, he's been cleared out okay, no fractures, no whatever. So I certainly anticipate he would play. He'll probably pop up on the injury report today with that ankle. But it's decision-making. 2,834 yards passing, 17 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions for a 92.7 passer rating. And on top of that, now, they got boat raced by the Detroit Lions on Sunday, but he has not thrown an interception in his last 4 games because he was in their 3-game stint before that. He was on fire. But yeah, that's the biggest thing is he is working more. I think the light certainly has come on fully for him, and he's able to. I mean, he's still young, and he's going to make a mistake because loss and averages. All quarterbacks, and you play long enough, you're going to have a bad play. But I think the maturity is there, and look, he's got options. I mean, Travis Etienne is the back now. They moved James Robinson in a trade, and he can run it too. He's got 43 carries for 211 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, but. Christian Kirk has done really well after a slow start with, everybody, they paid him all that money. He's got 829 yards and 7 touchdowns, and they've got Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Marvin Jones. So, I mean, they've got weapons to work with in this thing. And, he's clearly their franchise quarterback and will be there for quite some time. And it all starts with him. You've got to pay attention to what he's doing, not only passing, but as I just pointed out, running too.
Rhett, but you look at this team, man, and you say that they're just good enough. Like, their points against and points for are just middle of the pack as far as the league goes, right? And you look at what we think is a good Baltimore team as much as we all hate them and say they kept it close.
You mean the Ratbirds?
Yeah, Ratbirds. Yeah, I know it's only got to go beat them this week, man. But that's beside the point. They kept it close enough against them to actually beat them. And that's where you can't play that game this weekend with this Jacksonville Jaguars team.
No, because here's the thing. First of all, they've got defensive players.
Yeah.
They've drafted well.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some dudes back there. And then one thing they needed was a sure tackler in the middle of those three tiers, and they got it in Foye Oluokun, the former Atlanta Falcon. He's got 128 tackles right now. So, I mean, they've got some fellas up front. And Josh Allen, the other one from Kentucky, is the one that, had kind of meandered through his first couple of years. Yeah. They finally got some guys with him to create some synergy together, and it's working. Listen, you can't sleep on those guys. Look, every week, if you're Mike Vrabel, you're telling him this is the season, this is the big game of the week. But this is truly, after the last two drops, you got to win this one, because your surest way to get into the playoffs for another consecutive year is to win your division. You got to find some way to get 10 wins, and this is the first of those next 3 that you need to get to 10 wins.
As a competitor, I'll say this too. If I'm on the opposite locker room of the Titans, even if I know inside the locker room there's no issue, I'm painting it up with my team. Look, hey, they got a lot of stuff going on in Tennessee, y'all. They got distractions. You got to feel like Jacksonville, whether Trevor's 100% healthy or not, going to kind of use that a little bit like, oh, y'all look like us out here right now, even if it's not true.
Well, it's exactly what the Titans, I would imagine, did when they had Urban Meyer a year ago for the first matchup. So, yes, absolutely.
It's fair. Rhett Bryan with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Rhett, it's a Jacksonville defense, number 29 against the pass. Second-year corner Tyson Campbell, safety Rayshon Jenkins, a guy that's kind of been up and down this season. They've allowed just over 3,000 passing yards. I imagine today we get more insight into Treylon Burks, his availability coming off of that game against Philadelphia, and specifically against this pass defense, Rhett. You certainly hope you can have Treylon. Obviously going to be tough considering the hit that he took, but we've been talking with you about this for weeks, that Treylon is a man possessed in a good way, and again won a tough matchup in man coverage and paid the price for it Sunday.
Let me tell you, the first thing I said to Coach Mack when we were on the air, I was like, this is just like Rod Tidwell in that play and Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
Bang, bang play, knocked out and held on to the ball. Think about it. It was just like Cuba Gooding Jr. in that movie.
It was.
You better hope that he is working through that and that you're continuing to cultivate Chig's process in this, because they're 13th against the run at 113 yards allowed per game, and they're 7th against the run in rushing yards per play allowed. So, yeah, you got to get that part of it going so that you can open up stuff for the run game in this. But, Treylon Burks, you started seeing that in the Denver game and certainly in the Green Bay game as he's starting to stack good performances. The thing that the coaches keep telling us and his teammates, and if you just listen to the chatter about him, is how he came back from injured reserve with a vengeance.
Yeah.
He came back with a fire. You heard Mike Vrabel said the biggest thing I saw was his attitude. And not that his attitude was like bad. He didn't mean it that way. It's just he was dialed in, ready to go. He seems like a little bit of a different dude in that respect. And, they need him. They need Chig. They've got to be able to go in there and say, hey, we've beat you guys 5 times in a row. We're still your daddy.
That's right. Certainly.
Do you almost expect some change as far as personnel goes with the big boys up front? Because I don't know if we've heard Coach Vrabel, kind of pull out guys' names in a presser like this.
But he did LaRaven Clark, who is a veteran.
Yeah.
Who was with the Colts and the Eagles and has been on this roster quietly for several weeks and has come in some situational things. But, for him to go ahead and say that in the presser on Monday, that got my attention as well. And so I guess we're going to find out. But, everyone has said what they've said about Dennis Daly, and the numbers are there and the stats are there and not in the favor that you want them to be. But the fact that he offered that and it was not a question, I was like, okay, make a note right there. Yep. Because that's the thing that I always, over the years have learned about him and Jon Robinson is they just tell you what they were going to do. They would just do it so deadpan that you didn't realize they were telling you at the time. You go back and read a transcript that Kim Smith sends to us, and you're like, well, doggone, it was right there in front of us.
Sure.
What in the world? Of course, I'm not a smart guy, but I go back and research. I'm like, there he was. He said it a month ago.
He did.
But, yeah, when he mentioned LaRaven Clark, I was like, okay, could be an interesting week.
One Jacksonville Jaguars update just now, actually. Ben Arthur of Fox Sports.
Breaking news.
Tweeting just now about 15 seconds ago. Doug Peterson talking to reporters saying that Trevor Lawrence with a foot injury is day-to-day and will not practice today ahead of Jacksonville's trip to Nissan Stadium.
Ooh.
Well,
so there's a Trevor Lawrence
and
update.
their backup, C.J. Beathard.
Yes.
A Nashville native.
Battleground Academy. That's
Once
right.
with the Niners.
Iowa played against Tennessee in the TaxSlayer Bowl as well in 2015. Yeah.
And spent some time with the San Francisco 49ers before he went to the Jacksonville Jaguars in free agency. But, yeah, so there we are.
Okay.
And look, it's one of those things where I think Trevor Lawrence is at the stage in his career where even if he doesn't practice this week, he could go out and play a game if he felt up to it. And it was, if the trainers were like, you're not going to mess anything up. Because we don't know exactly what the foot injury is.
Right.
Because it looked bad enough. You're like, that looked like maybe it was an ankle dislocation or, but the fact that nothing's broken or torn that we know of is huge. But there you go from Ben Arthur.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and speaking of that, too, just speaking of 49ers backups, just kind of an aside on Brock Purdy now being the starter. Can you imagine if I told you during the draft process that Brock Purdy was going to be a starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers in December?
Well, with all of our sports gaming partners, I would like to know what the odds are on those things because Brock Purdy became the first Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last pick in this year's draft at 262. He came to the first Mr. Irrelevant to throw a touchdown in a regular season game. And if it stays status quo with Jimmy G out, and now that we know Baker Mayfield is with the Rams, he will become the first Mr. Irrelevant to start a game in the National Football League at quarterback.
Yeah, that's wild.
But Brock Purdy, pretty good player. He was Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of Arizona. I forget what part of Arizona he was from. Went to Iowa State as a third-string quarterback, quickly moved his way through. In his sophomore year, he was starter the last 3 years he was there. He's all-time leading passer at Iowa State, over 12,000 yards passing, 81 touchdowns in his career. He had a nice game coming in for Jimmy G last week, and I think he had about an 88 passer rating, had 2 touchdowns and a pick, I think. But that's an interesting story, and you just never know. Now, that's a very small sample size, but that's a guy that did enough in college where they felt like, okay, you can digest this. He must be a pretty smart cat because he went right in there and didn't miss a beat.
It's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
This is why I love talking to Rhett, too, is because we can bring up something about the 49ers third-string quarterback, and Rhett's like, his first.
Yeah, he did.
We love
draft stuff, man.
We love to see it.
Bringing the
Also,
knowledge.
that's the Coach Mack School of Ball.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm a rising junior.
Lower body injuries also. Tannehill, he looked good running in the game, but he also took some hits. It looked like he might have taken away from that health.
I think the ankle thing is something that's going to nag him the rest of the year.
It's going to nag. Okay.
I think it's just going to be because I think we figured out it's a high ankle sprain, and it's just one of those where it's just going to bother him. Soft tissue, man. Ligaments
or tendons.
I think the only way it's worse is if it's nerve endings, like Peyton Manning with a neck or Marcus Mariota with the elbow. It's just, it's its own course.
Real quick with Derrick Henry, it's got to be frustrating for him right now. Like, we know the player he is. He's an ultimate pro. He's a leader on this team. But, I mean, is he just sitting there probably frustrated that he can't?
I think it's clear. I mean, look at his body language and expressions on the sideline Sunday in Philadelphia. He wouldn't be the competitor he is if he was not frustrated. And I don't mean that he's mad at his teammates or whoever. He just has that fire in his belly. And, look, best way in the world for me to cure all that is play Jacksonville and run for about 250.
Yeah.
Isn't he been good against them?
Oh, historically.
Very good.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations to him, too, as the second consecutive in consecutive years being the Tennessee Titans Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year.
So cool.
That's big time.
And he's one of the 32, and they'll reveal that in the NFL Honors Program the night before Super Bowl 57. But,
Awesome.
he's a good dude, does a lot of great stuff for those who need it, and he's there to assist.
Derrick Henry in 11 games against the Jags has 213 carries, just over 1,100 yards, and 15 touchdowns.
Boom.
103 yards per game, 5.4 yards per carry.
Bingo.
And 14 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving. In the words of one Barney Stinson, Daddy's home.
Hey now.
To Jacksonville fans everywhere. Rhett Bryan, our guest every Wednesday here on what is typically known as Scout Meeting Wednesday. Scout Meeting Thursday will happen tomorrow, with today being a reaction morning. Rhett, thank you as always.
Thank you all. It's a pleasure being with you.
Thanks,
Thank
Rhett
you.
B.
We close out the show next with a little bit of midweek motivation courtesy of Inky, Johnson, and more for the final couple of minutes. Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Craftsman on the Hill, one of the best bars around, located in Hermitage. Actual address is 342411 in Pike in Hermitage, Tennessee. Listen to me, it's one of the best bars around with a whole lot of parking and the best menus that take bar food to a whole new level, featuring the delicious smoked wings, okay? And this is not just the wings. They got burgers, quesadillas, chicken sandwiches, tenders, several homemade sauces, whatever you want. And as cool as it's been lately to have a smoked brisket chili served every single day. Also, Fridays, you can get you a catfish plate before you head to the crib, and there's something going on every single day of the week. Tonight's Dark League night. There's poker tournaments throughout the week. Also, it's the perfect place to support your college team on Saturday or the Two-Tone Blue on Sunday. Plenty of TVs to watch your favorite sports and sports team. Is locally owned, and you know we support local here in the Nashville area, and it's under new management too. Everything you could want from your favorite beer, spirit, plenty of nightly drinks and food specials. Monday through Sunday, you can go to Craftsman on the Hill, located 342411 in Pike in Hermitage, Tennessee.
Join 104.5 The Zone's 3-8 Jones. We broadcast live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill coming up Friday. Stop by as we kick off the football weekend at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. And while you're there, try to beat Brent and Slay's picks of the week for your chance to win $250 in tickets and prizes from Scoreboard Bar and Grill. For more info, visit 1045thezone.com/events.
Should be about time for the parlay to be a college basketball bet. I would imagine. Ron Slay's picks, trying to beat those at Scoreboard every week. Come by and see them. See us for one final segment right now at Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors right here on The Zone. Scout meeting Thursday coming up tomorrow. Coach Mack will stop by. A Titans ticket Thursday as well with your chance to see the Titans in Nissan Stadium to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars and much, much more.
Jaguars.
Quick one today. Knew it would be, but quick one today.
Big news yesterday for sure.
Yeah, not little news.
Game still got to be
way.
played tomorrow. Yeah, no, not a little news.
I'm just saying, don't let me take a nap today because I will wake up.
Now I'm not going to do any appointments anymore on my days off. Nope.
With everybody talking about my guy Todd Downing being out too. Heck, maybe I need to take a nap to miss that news.
Here we go.
That's been the okay.
I'm going to take a nap to miss that take from you.
Yeah, I know. That's been the number one take. Well, man, Jon Robinson going, what about Todd? It's like, dang, Todd just sitting back right now, chilling. And
DA, baby.
Sound from the Titans locker room, Q's and K's coming up tomorrow as well. And interested to see the injury report today coming off of Philadelphia. Yeah. And Traylon Burks is going to be the big question mark.
We talked about the Jags news, right? I can't even remember
we did.
If we talked about it in the break or what.
Yeah. Day-to-day for quarterback Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson talking to reporters. John Shipley reporting that Peterson says that Lawrence has a sprained big toe.
Ooh.
And that is the injury that he's got.
The big toe.
Doesn't sound great.
Dang, guys.
It's just
sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but
you laugh. Yeah, you did.
The big toe. Rhett's over here.
That's a really specific report.
You know how bad your big toe hurts, man?
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Look,
I won't tell you some of the injuries. I had to deal with that back in the day.
Oh, my gosh. That would be trash. Plus, he's an athletic quarterback, too, that like to use his feet. That could, that's a hard day at the office.
Did you ever get, you're going to get mad at me for asking this, like the big blisters in the middle of the season?
Yeah.
The worst.
The worst ones also was in camp because there's no day offs in between. So you got to, like, put on extra socks. You got to put, like, the petroleum jelly on, like, the back of your foot and stuff like that to keep it sliding and everything. Yeah. You see that. Man, it's bad.
It was never bad enough for me to miss practice, but it was bad enough to make you hate practice.
Yeah, I've done both.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no joking that. The sacrifices you make within the spirit of competition, right?
That's why we don't wear heels anymore. At least I don't.
I was going to say, who else was in here wearing them?
Man, I don't wear heels. Even in the studio, I'm like, I can't even wear heels in the studio anymore. When I was on TV, it's not worth it.
I do got some.
You got some heels
boots.
there,
I got
some pumps?
boots. Nah, I told you I got those nice boots that I have. They got a little bit of a heel on them, but they're boots.
He wouldn't say the name of them.
I'm not saying the name of them.
See? I knew it.
I'm not saying the name.
Red bottoms?
Nope, they're not red bottoms.
I wouldn't know them even if
East St. Laurent's. They're nice.
Good Lord.
What?
He said it.
I did. Caleb Pride, man. Will looked at me with that side eye, like, do it, Moan. I was like,
Ramon Foster.
Don't ask me twice.
Well, we finish off the show as we do every Wednesday.
Hey, we got to bring some laughter to it.
We finish the show not
with.
just with Ramon Foster's shoe conversation. I'm sure. Tune in tomorrow. He will have bought a new pair. But we finish the show with midweek motivation, as we always do. Our guy Inky Johnson hanging out with us. Good morning, Inky. How are you?
What's going on, good people? How y'all doing?
We're great.
Hey.
Man, it's a pleasure to be on. I'm going to get right into it, man. I got two quotes I want to start us off with. And the first one reads, there are two primary choices in life, to accept conditions as they exist or to accept the responsibility for changing them. And the second one reads, two things to remember in life. Take care of your thoughts when you are alone and take care of your words when you are with people. And so I learned a valuable lesson when I was young from my mother. When I first started playing sports, she made a deal with me. She said, hey, Ink, I don't mind taking you to practice. I don't mind sitting in the park with the car lights on. I don't mind getting up early so you can get to certain sessions. I don't mind any of that. He said, but you got to hold up your end of the bargain and you got to do something for me. I said, what you got, Mom? He said, you always got to start whatever it is that you finish. Like, you always got to finish whatever it is that you start. He said, if you start something, you finish it. Right? We're not starting and you stopping because you don't like a coach. We're not getting in the process of something, and if you don't get the playing time you want, you check out. She said, we're not starting and not finishing. I said, I got you. That was one of the most valuable lessons I ever learned in my life, right? Because I was talking to a kid a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me about all the things he had accomplished, right? And then he started telling me about a coach, and he was asking my insight. And I'm going to tell you where I'm going with this. And I said to him, make him play you. Like, if you that nice and you that great, make him play you. And we live in such a culture of prima donnas, right? People that want to be catered to. I was reading Monday, over 1,000 kids entered the transfer portal, right? Now, on one end of it for programs, it could be great because kids can come in and play right away, and that's smooth and that's cool. And if something doesn't work out for you, cool, you do what you got to do. But on the flip end of that, I wonder how many of these kids are leaving certain situations because they're not getting what they want from the process or from the situation. And what's the downside of that, right? What's on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? How does that hurt them in their development? Because in life, you guys know and I know you're going to have to encounter situations to where you're going to have to finish. You're going to have to encounter situations that you're going to have to learn how to navigate and work through. You're going to have to encounter situations that cultivate and shape your character. The great thing about character, you can't inherit it. It doesn't matter where you were born or who you were born to. Character is something you have to wake up every single day. You have to fight and you have to build it. In opposition, in adversity, and in challenges. And so my word for today, finish whatever it is that you start. In spite of opposition, in spite of circumstances, in spite of situation, and in spite of outcome. Because what's more important, what we acquire or who we become? And I would venture to say it's the latter, who we become. Have a great day. Peace.